Chapter 455. Looking for the ruins of the ancient sects was something that all the sects and families were passionate about. In the ruins of the ancient sects, there might be a lot of cultivation resources. There might even be some heaven-defying mantras. Whichever sect or family was able to obtain them would have a great increase in strength. However, with the satellite map, it was much easier to find the ruins of the ancient sections. That was why Yi Xiaoya was puzzled. There were ruins of the ancient sects nearby? Why didn't the people in the past discover it? Moreover, how could there be ruins of the ancient sects in the vicinity of such a densely populated city? Thinking of this, Yi Xiaoya couldn't help but click on the push message curiously. I found the ruins of an ancient sect near Songning City. Now I'm gathering experts above the 5th stage of inner strength to explore and excavate it together. After entering the ruins, the treasures obtained can be exchanged for points or distributed equally according to the number of people. I won't take more. It's fair and reasonable. If anyone is interested, please contact me. Don't disturb me if you are below the 5th stage of inner strength. The message was very simple, but it revealed a lot of information. That was, the relic should be near Songning City, but the specific location was not mentioned. Songning City was a relatively large city. It was absolutely impossible to have the relic of an ancient sect in this city. It must be in the surrounding small cities and counties. However, this person did not elaborate. He was afraid that if he said too much, someone would search for it on their own without bringing him, the initiator. However, in the warrior guild, experts above the 5th stage of inner strength were rare. 3rd stage or 4th stage was already an extraordinary existence. After all, the local warrior guild didn't have many experts, and the experts of those families rarely went to the warrior guild to do the mission. This push message made Yi Xiaoya a little tempted. Even if she came from a big sect, who would complain about those cultivation resources? Moreover, the Devil Star sect was actually a relatively small sect in the Devil sect. Their resources were still very limited. After thinking about it, Yi Xiaoya forwarded this mission to the White Fox and said, "Are you interested?" Just as Xiao Qin finished his conversation with the Elder Heaven Ancestor, his phone rang. He picked it up and saw that there were actually 3 push notifications, which surprised him. The Warrior Guild's client rarely had push notifications, and it was usually Yi Xiaoya talking to him. Now that there were 3 of them, could it be that Yu Xiaochuan was also looking for him? But that shouldn't be the case. Ever since Yu Xiaochuan found out his true identity, he didn't use the Warrior Guild's app to contact him anymore. He opened it and saw that it was the same as what Yi Xiaoya had received. It was a piece of news about the exploration of the ancient sect ruins for the martial artists near Songning City. Xiao Qin glanced at it and his heart moved slightly. He didn't know why, but he suddenly thought of the Immortal Resort in Jiduan City. Behind the resort there was a back mountain. The spiritual energy in the back mountain was obviously not in line with the law. It was richer than other places. Could it be that the ancient ruins were there? However, Xiao Qin was only guessing. After all, even if he knew, it would be useless. With his strength alone, it would be difficult to find the entrance. When he was in the Xiao family, Xiao Qin had more or less heard about the ancient ruins, but it was a legendary existence. He heard that it required a lot of martial artists to explore together. There were many traps and dangers inside, and many people never returned. But that was also because the people who went to explore were not strong enough. Now that Xiao Qin had the strength close to the peak of Inner Force Stage 9, it shouldn't be a big problem for him to explore. Because Xiao Qin was in Lan City, he temporarily put this message aside and started to look at the second message. The second message was from a stranger, but this stranger's name was familiar to Xiao Qin. It was a person called Clayden, which was obviously a code name. After thinking about it, other than Clayden University, Xiao Qin couldn't seem to stop talking about this person. Wait. Xiao Qin suddenly returned to the first message and saw that the person who published the ancient sect ruins was this Clayden. This made Xiao Qin a little surprised. Why did this person send him a private message? Returning to the private message, Xiao Qin saw the message. The thing you want is actually the spiritual jade, right? I know where to find this thing. You should have also seen the task entrusted by me. Yes, in the ruins of the ancient sect there should be spiritual jades, and there is definitely some. In every ancient sect ruins, there will be more or less spiritual jades. I saw that your mission completion rate is 100%, so I really want to work with you. How about it, are you interested? Xiao Qin took a deep breath. It seemed that his previous mission had attracted Clayden. However, Xiao Qin didn't reply immediately. Instead, he opened the third message. This message was sent by Yi Xiaoya. White Fox, take a look at this mission. Are you interested? If you are, let's sign up together. At least we can look after each other. Xiao Qin was a little surprised. He hadn't expected Yi Xiaoye to be interested in this mission. After thinking about it, he replied, "Sure, let's go together. However, Clayton has already sent me a private message. I'll check it out first." "Alright, if it's real then we'll sign up." Yi Xiaoye's reply came quickly. Xiaoqin replied to Clayton, "Really? If I go, will all the spiritual jade in the ruins belong to me?" After sending the message, there was no immediate reply. He didn't know if Clayton was hesitant or didn't see it. After a while, there was a reply. "Are you an expert above stage 5 inner force? If there are only 1 or 2 spiritual jades in the ruins, you don't want anything else?" "Yes, I don't want anything else," Xiaoqin replied readily. "Alright, I don't have any problems on my side. When the time comes, I'll speak to the others as the initiator. If no one objects, then it's fine," Clayton replied. "I have 2 experts above stage 5 inner force on my side. They want to participate, but I'm not sure what she wants. We'll talk about it when the time comes," Xiaoqin said. "Sure. Send me the ID of the warrior guild." "I'll record it down," Clayton said. "Yi Xiaoye White Fox." Xiaoqin sent it over. "When we have more than 5 people we can set off. I'll let you know when the time comes. By the way, are you free in the near future?" Clayton asked. "Not for the next few days. I have something to do outside." "It should be fine in a few days," Xiaoqin said. "Definitely not for the next few days. Even if we have enough people, I still have to make preparations." "Just in time, we'll contact each other then," Clayton said. Xiaoqin replied with, "Okay," and told Yi Xiaoye about it. Yi Xiaoye said that she understood and waited for White Fox to come back. After Xin Jingxian and the others left, Tan Muwei also left Xin Shanha's courtyard and returned to her own villa. Shen Jingquan went to deal with the affairs of the Shen family, and Tan Muwei secretly called her brother Tan Muyo. Although the Tan family was currently in the limelight, with her brother being the chief apothecary of Lan City's warrior market and her sister marrying into the Shen family, both of them knew that it was only temporary. If a family wanted to pass on its legacy, it would be impossible without a solid foundation. The marriage between the Tan family and the Shen family would only end in this generation. It was true that Tan Muyo was an apothecary, but he was not a warrior. His lifespan was the same as an ordinary person. If he died, then so be it. The glory of the Tan family would no longer exist. Therefore, the marriage of the next generation of the Tan family became the most important. Tan Muyo had a son called Tan Jita, who was also Tan Muwei's nephew. When he was young, he attended the Shen family's banquets. At that time, he had taken a fancy to Xin Jingxian and had been thinking about her all these years. Although Tan Jita, who was self-proclaimed as one of the 4 young masters of Lan City, had played with many women after his father's rise in status, how could those vulgar women compare to Xin Jingxian? When he was free, he would ask his aunt when Xin Jingxian would return to the Shen family so that he could visit her. Tan Muwei also wanted to facilitate this matter. After all, if Tan Jita and Xin Jingxian got married, then the Tan family could at least continue to exist in the upper class. Tan Muwei's thinking was very simple. If Xin Jingxian agreed to the marriage, then she would make the decision and let Xin Jianghao and his family continue to stay in the Shen family. In her eyes, the person who would get to the top was either her husband or her son. It was impossible for anyone else. "Little sister, how is it? Why did you call me? Is that old thing dying?" Tan Muyo asked. "Don't mention it. That old thing is not dying. What's going on?" Tan Muwei was also a little puzzled. Logically speaking, old Master Shen should have died long ago. It was impossible for him to hold on until now. "Do the herbs you gave him have the effect of curing poison?" "How is that possible? Those are just some tonics. They have no effect on curing poison and illness." Tan Muyo said, "This old thing may be a warrior. His physical fitness is good. Let's wait a little longer. We can't rush this. Anyway, it's a matter of time." "That's true." Tan Muwei nodded. She was indeed the one who poisoned Xin Shanha because she couldn't wait any longer. If this old thing didn't die, her husband and son would never be able to get to the top. If this dragged on, it was hard to say whether there would be variables in the future. So she took the risk. "By the way, you called me for this?" Tan Muyo asked. "Also, is Tan Jita at home?" Tan Muwei asked. "He went out last night and hasn't woken up yet. I'll call him for you." After Tan Muyo finished speaking, she yelled at her room. After a while, Tan Jita's confused voice came from the other side of the phone. "Aunt, are you looking for me?" "Xin Jingxian is back." Tan Muwei said, "Get ready to visit the Shen family and propose marriage. Now your uncle is in charge of the family. If things are done properly, there will be no problem." Chapter 456. Really? Jingxian is back? The voice on the other end of the line, which was originally a little muddled, suddenly rose an octave and became incomparably spirited. Aunt, what should I do? Should I go now? Tonight. Get ready and dress up. Come with your father and bring some gifts. Then I will help you settle the matter. Tan Muwei said. She didn't care about White Fox at all. These big families all followed the patriarchal system. The head of the family had the highest authority, and so did the acting head. Therefore, in her opinion, it was not a problem to arrange a marriage for Xin Jingxian. White Fox could go back to where it came from. Okay, I understand. Thank you, Aunt. Tan Kita said happily. He couldn't help but lick his lips when he thought of Xin Jingxian. Well, behave well. Tan Muwei reminded him. Previously, the marriage between Xin Jingxian and the Qin family was approved by Old Master Xin. However, after the Qin family brothers died, Xin Jingshuan's matter was temporarily put on hold. As for White Fox, Xin Jianghao didn't have time to tell Old Master Xin. He originally planned to give everyone a surprise when his second grandpa came out of seclusion. Therefore, Tan Muwei took the opportunity and ran over to inform Tan Kita of the news. Don't worry, Aunt. No matter what, I am one of the 4 young masters of Lan City. I am handsome and elegant, Tan Kita said confidently. Tan Muwei hung up the phone and sneered. White Fox, an outsider who came from nowhere, wanted to get involved in the Xin family's matter. Tonight she would let him see the difference between them. Then he would get lost as soon as possible. What kind of background and ability could a guy who didn't dare to show his real face have? Xiao Chen's lunch was sent by the Xin family's servants. Obviously, the Xin family didn't want to treat him to a meal. Xin Jinghao's family didn't have a high status in the Xin family, so the Xin family didn't specially welcome them. Like Xiao Chen, they ate fast food sent by the Xin family servants. At around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a disciple of the Xin family came to report that an important guest had come to the Xin family. He asked Xin Jinghao's family and the White Fox to go over together. This made Xiao Chen a little puzzled. What did the guest of the Xin family have to do with him? However, it didn't matter if he accompanied Xin Jingxian. As soon as Xiao Chen went out, he saw Xin Jingxian and the others coming out. Xiao Chen went up to them. White Fox, I'm sorry. I don't have a high status in the Xin family. My father doesn't have the final say. I'm sorry to have neglected you. Xin Jingxian said to Xiao Chen apologetically. That's okay. There are too many problems in the Xin family. We can only take it one step at a time. Xiao Chen wanted to solve the problem of Xin Shanhe first. Only when Xin Shanhe was fine could the other problems be solved. Otherwise, even if Xiao Chen helped Xin Jingmao get the position of the young master with violence, so what? Don't forget that there was still a key figure in the Xin family. That was Xin Jingshuan's second grandfather. It was said that he was a master among masters. Even if Xiao Chen could suppress these people, he was probably not a match for the second grandfather. The few of them went all the way to the first floor of the Xin family's villa. It was a large living room. At this time, 2 men, one old and one young, were sitting on the sofa. They were chatting happily with Tan Muwei and Xin Jingquan. When he saw Xin Jingxian and the others enter, the young man's eyes lit up and he stood up. On the other hand, Tan Muwei turned around with a smile and said, Jingxian, you're here. Look who's here. Tan Kita? Xin Jingxian was slightly stunned. She knew Tan Kita, but she didn't have much contact with him. After all, he was a relative of the first branch. She rarely went back to the Xin family. Yes, Kita's father is my elder brother. He's your eldest uncle. Today he came to continue to treat Dad. When Kita heard that you're back, he also came and bought you a lot of gifts. Tan Muwei said. Xin Jingxian was a little unhappy. She knew that Tan Kita had some bad intentions towards her. He had shown it before. She didn't expect that he would not give up. It seemed that the news of her coming back was leaked by Tan Muwei. No wonder she didn't agree when she heard that she had a boyfriend. It was because of Tan Kita. Although she was unhappy, Xin Jingxian had to smile and greet them. Eldest uncle, cousin Kita, you're here. However, Xin Jingxian deliberately pointed out that they were relatives. Tan Kita was her cousin, so there was no need to think about other things. Tan Kita's eyes flashed with a touch of excitement when he saw Xin Jingxian. He said with a smile, Jingxian, long time no see. You've become more beautiful. You deserve to be my goddess since I was a child. You're always so radiant. In fact, Tan Kita was a man with a very good appearance. At the moment he was wearing a decent suit. He had a handsome face and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He looked gentle and refined. At first glance, one could tell that he had an extraordinary background. Judging from his appearance alone, he was indeed a very handsome man. However, Xiao Chen's sixth senses were very strong. He could tell at a glance that Tan Kita's complexion was not good. It was obvious that he had overindulged. Wine and women were necessities of his life. He might also have taken some drugs. However, this guy was a warrior. These things were hidden very well. It was not to the extent that it would affect his health and strength. Of course, it was also because he was young. If he was older, there would inevitably be some problems. Really? Xin Jingxian did not want to be entangled with Tan Kita, so she introduced him directly. This is my boyfriend, White Fox. He came back with me this time. White Fox, this is my cousin Tan Kita. Play the guitar? Xiao Chen was stunned. What's your relationship with playing the chicken? Tan Kita is my younger brother. What's wrong? Do you know him? Tan Kita was also stunned. He looked at Xiao Chen inexplicably. He thought, could this person be an acquaintance? It's fine. Xiao Chen was speechless. This family was full of weirdos. This name is too funny. Oh. Tan Kita was a bit inexplicable. He nodded to Xiao Chen and reached out his hand. He said, White Fox, right? Did we know each other before? Or do you know my younger brother? Ahem. Tan Muyao's face slightly changed. The White Fox was wearing a mask so no one could see his emotions. Therefore, it was easy for people to misunderstand his real meaning. However, Tan Muyao was old and shrewd. Thinking about the tone of the White Fox, she knew that it was not a good thing. Therefore, she scolded Tan Kita. Kita, he doesn't know your brother. He is just joking with you. Just joking. Tan Kita nodded. He did not expect Xiao Chen to scold him. After all, Xiao Chen's expression could not be seen through the mask. He still said politely, in Lan City I Tan Kita, am still very useful. White Fox, if you have any problems you can look for me. I'll help you settle it. Where does White Fox work? In fact, what Tan Kita said before was nonsense. The last sentence was what he wanted to ask. He was a bit unsure about White Fox's background. I'm Jingshuan's classmate. Xiao Chen shook hands with him and said casually, I'm just a student. Where else can I work? Oh. Tan Kita let out a sigh of relief at once. He understood clearly, so he's just a student. Then he doesn't have any background. In the schools of the secular world, the most powerful students are just the children of those aristocratic families. But compared with the Shin family, they are too far behind. Of course, they can't compare with the son of the chief pharmacist. Of course, Tan Kita was also a smart person. He disdained Xiao Chen's identity in his heart, but he was still very warm on the surface. He knew that Xin Jingxian was a cheerful and generous person. She hated those petty tricks. Therefore, he could plot against Xiao Chen behind his back, but he still looked very warm on the surface. Jingxian and I are childhood sweethearts. You're Jingshuan's classmate, so you're also my friend. How about it? Do you have time? I'll take you around Lan City and give me a chance to play host, Tan Kita said warmly. Forget it. Xiao Chen shook his head and said, I'm accompanying Jingxian. Now that Grandpa Shen is seriously ill in bed, it's not good for me to go sightseeing. It's better for me to stay here quietly. After listening to Xiao Chen's words, Tan Kita was even more sure that he was not a member of a big family. If he was a member of a very powerful family, he would usually be very arrogant. How could he abide by the rules of the Shen family? He guessed that he was just an ordinary classmate of Xin Jingxian. He did not know how he got the favor of Xin Jingxian. However, this kind of relationship was very fragile. As long as he gave him some benefits, it would not be difficult to get him. The only thing that puzzled Tan Kita was, why was this White Fox wearing a mask? Was he ashamed to meet people? It doesn't matter. We can't stop living because of Grandpa Shen's illness, right? Tan Kita said with a smile, I believe that Jingxian will understand and so will the Shen family. Yes, White Fox. Since you are a guest of the Shen family, it's not suitable to take you out to play with the Shen family's current situation. However, since Kita has the heart, let him take you around. Shen Jingquan said. He was now the person in charge of the Shen family, so he naturally represented the Shen family when he spoke. Okay, let's talk about it later, Xiao Chen casually replied and did not take it to heart. If it was said that Tan Kita was sincerely inviting him out to play, even Xiao Chen himself would not believe it. This guy was obviously interested in Xin Jingxian. How could he treat him with sincerity? However, because of Xin Jingshuan's reputation, Xiao Chen did not directly refute Xin Jingquan. Dad, let's go and see Grandpa Xin together, Tan Kita said. Okay, Jingquan, is old Xin awake? Can we go and see him now? Tan Muyao asked. It should be about time. Xin Jingquan nodded and said, let's go up together. Then these people went upstairs together to see Shinshanha. On the way, Tang Kita was still talking to Xiao Qin. "White Fox, why are you wearing a mask?" "Oh, it's the mental cultivation method that I practice. It can't be exposed to light," Xiao Qin said. Chapter 457. "Oh, you are also a martial artist?" Tanjita was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Xiao Qin to be a martial artist. "Then you should not be an ordinary student, right? Which family are you from?" "I'm not from a family," Xiao Qin said. "Then you are a rogue cultivator. It is not easy to be a rogue cultivator." After Tanjita heard this, his heart calmed down. "Then what is your strength now?" "Not much strength, still very weak," Xiao Qin said. There was still a certain distance to reach the foundation stage. Practicing martial arts is indeed very tiring. Look at me, I'm already a martial artist at the 6th layer of inner strength. However, this is also thanks to my father being the chief pharmacist of the Lan City Martial Artists Market. He often refines medicinal liquids and pills for me. Tanjita said until here. He was probably a few steps behind the group in front of him. Then he directly asked, "White Fox, let's not beat around the bush. You like Jingxian, right?" Xiao Qin was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Tanjita to suddenly ask this. But he quickly replied, "I am her boyfriend. Naturally I like her. Why do you ask?" "Very well, to be honest, I like her too." Tanjita looked at Xiao Qin and said honestly, "Of course, I heard that Jingxian is the goddess of the masses, so it's normal for you to like her. But have you ever thought about it? Marriage is about matching families. In order to ensure their own prosperity, big families will marry families that match their family's status. Even if there is a gap, it will not be too big. The Shin family is a martial arts family. So, the marriage of the children of the Shin family is a very serious issue." "Oh, and then?" Xiao Qin nodded and asked. "You still don't understand what I mean?" Tanjita was a little depressed. How can this guy not understand what I'm talking about? It was already so obvious and he still asked me then? "I understand. So, you are saying that I am not good enough for Shin Jingxian?" Xiao Qin laughed. "It seems like you understand. That's good." Tanjita breathed a sigh of relief. Talking to smart people is really refreshing. "Since you are also a martial artist, then I won't say anything else. How about this, you break up with Jingxian, I can give you some cultivation resources that you can't even imagine." "I'm not interested. Cultivation is just my side job," Xiao Qin said. "What do you mean? What's your main profession?" Tanjita was slightly taken aback. "Of course, my main job is to woo Goddess Shun," Xiao Qin said with a smile. Tanjita almost choked to death on his own saliva. He stared at Xiao Qin with widened eyes. After a while he said, "Brat, don't be so shameless. Who do you think you are? Believe it or not, I can make sure that you won't be able to leave Lan City alive." "What? Since you can't entice me, you're starting to threaten me?" Xiao Qin said coldly, "Do you think that the warrior guild won't care if you kill people indiscriminately?" "You're right. My father is the chief apothecary of Lan City's warrior market. Even the president of Lan City's warrior guild needs my father's help." Tanjita said arrogantly, "Moreover, do you think that I will leave any evidence if I kill you? So if I don't agree I will die, right?" Xiao Qin asked in return. "You can understand it that way." Tanjita said proudly. "Alright, I don't want to live anymore." Xiao Qin finished speaking and walked away quickly. Damn it, this brat can't be thinking that I'm joking, right? Looking at Xiao Qin leaving in a carefree manner, as if he was not threatened at all, Tanjita was a little depressed. He shook his head and said, "It seems that these loose cultivators still think that the martial arts world is the same as the secular world, where people can't be killed indiscriminately." When they arrived at Shinshanha's room, Tan Muyo pretended to take Shinshanha's pulse, then said worriedly, "The old man's problem doesn't seem to be getting better. He should be getting old and his body is failing. In this kind of situation, even a deity would be powerless to save him." "Thank you, Xiao Tan. I understand my own problem. It's rare for you to come over and take my pulse whenever you're free." Shinshanha thanked him. "Old Shin, you're too polite. Because of Xiao Wei, I'm considered your junior. As a junior, I naturally have to be more attentive. Moreover, I'm a apothecary." Tan Muyo said this and sighed, "I can only blame myself for not being skilled in medicine. There's nothing I can do. Haha, I've already gotten over it. It doesn't matter." Shinshanha smiled and said, "I'm just worried about the Shin family." When Shin Jingquan heard this, he suddenly felt uncomfortable in his heart. He secretly cursed, "You old fart. You've held the power of the family for so many years, yet you don't know how to give up your position. Choosing a young master requires a comprehensive examination. You don't even care about me, the eldest son. In fact, Xin Shanhe did not decide on the heir of the family. It was also out of consideration for the future of the Xin family. The Xin family was for the capable. Xin Shanhe knew that this was the only way to ensure the prosperity of the family. Actually, I still have a last resort. When Tan Muyo said this, his words paused as if he wanted to say something but stopped. Brother, what else is there? Tell me quickly. As long as it can cure father's illness, it's not a problem no matter how difficult and troublesome it is. Tan Muwei said quickly. Xiaoqun looked coldly at Tan Muwei and Tan Muyo, who were putting on a show. Xiaoqun was almost sure that Xin Shanhe's illness was caused by them. Now they were still putting on a show in front of him. It was really disgusting. However, before Xiaoqun thought of a solution, it was not bad to watch them put on a show. When Gita was young, I took him to a master to teach him pharmacology and knowledge of medicinal properties, but this kid's mind was not on pharmacists. He liked to practice martial arts and later became a warrior. Tan Muyo said, and his master has now become a famous pharmacist. He now works in the Warriors Market of the Warriors Guild headquarters. Now he has become the chief pharmacist of the Warriors Guild headquarters. If he is willing to come forward to treat him, there is still a glimmer of hope. Then hurry up and find that powerful pharmacist. Tan Muwei said quickly. The brother and sister were so well coordinated that they could even act in a movie. My personal relationship with him is not that good. In the past, I just asked a friend to take Gita as a master. After all, Gita doesn't listen to me. I taught him, but he didn't listen. So I thought of finding someone for him. Tan Muyo said, however, Gita and his master have been in contact all these years. If Gita comes forward, it is still possible to invite him. Then what are you waiting for? Gita, call your powerful master and ask him to help treat your grandpa Shin. Tan Muwei said. And I want to. Tan Gita said with a wry smile, do you think I didn't call him before? However, people at my master's level rarely meddle in other people's business. He will refuse ordinary people who look for him. Otherwise, there are countless people looking for him every day. He doesn't need to do anything else. He can't deal with these people who ask him for help. Aren't you his disciple? There should be no problem, right? Tan Muwei said. I have no problem. But the affairs of the Shin family are not my business. Tan Gita explained helplessly, you know, in fact, I have no direct relationship with the Shin family. And my master can't interfere with such things just because my aunt married into the Shin family. He will only interfere if I have a relationship with the Shin family. Think about it, if everyone who knows him asks him for help on behalf of their relatives and friends, wouldn't he be too busy? So my master made a rule that even if it's an acquaintance, it can only be his own business. Other than that, he will not come out of the mountain. Then it's difficult. Tan Muwei was a little disappointed. At this time, Xin Jingquan said, in fact, it's not impossible. I know that Gita has always liked Jingxian. They are childhood sweethearts. How about this, if they get engaged, then the affairs of the Xin family will be Gita's business. Jingxian, are you willing to marry Gita for your grandpa? Xin Jingxuan's face turned red. She wasn't good at scheming, but even if she wasn't good at it at this time, she understood that Tan Muyo, Tan Muwei, Tan Jita, and Xin Jingquan were all acting. In the end, their goal was the matter between her and Tan Jita. Jingxian, do you want to see your grandpa go on like this? Tan Muwei questioned. Don't you have any filial piety? Why are you still hesitating? In my opinion, it's just a formality whether they have a relationship or not. How about letting Tan Gita recognize Elder Shin as his foster grandpa? Isn't that fine? Xiao Qin said indifferently, the affairs of the foster grandpa are Tan Gita's own business. Will his master not help him? How can it be the same? Foster grandpa is not reliable at all. Tan Muwei said, it's just talk. It can't be proven. Why should he help him, right, Gita? Of course. Tan Gita nodded and said, but if Jingxian is my wife, then there will be no problem. At that time, Medicine Master Ji will definitely come forward to help. Jingxian, what do you think? Xin Jingquan looked at Xin Jingxian and asked, then looked at Xin Jinghao. Jinghao, what do you think about this? Xin Jingmao clenched his fists at the side. There were a few times when he wanted to flare up, but he knew that the Xin family would not tolerate his impudence. There was no place for him to speak and no one would listen to him. Alright, don't make things difficult for the child. At this moment, Xin Shanhe suddenly said, I know my own problem. Even if another pharmacist came, it would be difficult to cure my problem. Let's not talk about this anymore. Hearing Xin Shanhe's words, The room immediately quieted down. Tan Muwei was a little unwilling, but there was nothing she could do. She could only wait until she went downstairs to persuade Xin Jingxian and Xin Jinghao. Chapter 458. Okay, I'm tired. I'm going to rest. You guys can leave now. Xin Shanha gasped for breath. He looked tired and closed his eyes. Obviously, he was disappointed with the children of the Xin family. Although he was sick, he wasn't confused. He was clear about the little tricks that Tan Muwei and Tan Muyo used, but their reasons were high-sounding, so he couldn't say anything. Moreover, he didn't want to die, but he had no choice. However, if he had to sacrifice the happiness of the younger generation, he would rather not do it. He was a selfless person. For the sake of the Xin family, he could give up a lot. The current situation was a little out of control. Every day, the fight between the first branch and the second branch exhausted him mentally and physically. Now Xin Jingxian was involved. Xin Shanha was really a little tired. The people in the room left the room, went downstairs, and returned to the living room again. At this time, the atmosphere was a little silent. Jinghao, think about what I said before. Xin Jingquan said to Xin Jinghao directly. She didn't put Xiao Qian in her eyes at all. She directly treated him as heir. For the sake of the Xin family, this marriage is good for both you and me. I can guarantee that if you agree, your branch will stay in the Xin family, and you will be responsible for the Xin family's affairs. Xin Jingxuan's condition made Xin Jinghao slightly stunned. However, he had seen the power of White Fox. At this moment, although he didn't know why White Fox had been enduring, he couldn't agree to Xin Jingxuan's condition. Moreover, his ambition wasn't small. He wanted Xin Jingmao to be the next leader. He wasn't satisfied with just staying in the Xin family. If that happened, all his previous efforts would be in vain. There's nothing to think about. I respect Jingxuan's decision. Xin Jinghao said coldly. His words surprised Xiao Qian. Xin Jinghao shouldn't be such a loyal person, but he probably saw that Xiao Qian was much stronger than Tanjita. However, he couldn't say anything in this situation. After all, no one would believe him if he boasted about how awesome the White Fox was. Xin Jinghao left the villa with Xin Jingxian, Xin Jingmao, and Xiao Qian. Xin Jingquan looked at their backs, and a trace of gloom flashed across his eyes. Although he was the acting family head now, his words didn't have any effect, which made him very angry. Uncle-in-law. Tanjita looked at Xin Jingxuan's back as he left, and a greedy look flashed across his eyes. This matter? It doesn't matter. You can pursue him normally. As for that White Fox, if you can't do it, use some tricks to kill him. As long as he's dead, everything will be easy. Xin Jingquan did not put Xiao Qian in her eyes at all. I understand, Tanjita said with a sinister smile. Xin Jingxian and the others returned to their villa, while Xiao Qian returned to his guest room. After returning, there was nothing else to do, so he began to brew the medicinal liquid. Xiao Qian was used to brewing the medicinal liquid at night, and the devil centipede fruit just happened to be effective. Who knew that just as he finished brewing the electric clay pot, the doorbell would ring. Xiao Qian thought that it was the Xin family servant who came to deliver dinner, but when he opened the door, it wasn't. There was nothing in the person's hands. Who are you looking for? Xiao Qian asked in puzzlement. Mr. White Fox? The Xin family disciple at the door said, Old Master Xin asked me to look for you alone. I'm his servant. Xiao Qian was a little surprised. Xin Shanha is looking for me? Didn't he just see me? Therefore Xiao Qian looked at the person at the door suspiciously. Is he Xin Shanha's servant? Could it be that Xin Jingquan or Tanjita found someone to trick me out and then harm me? However, after thinking about it, Xiao Qian did not mind it. His current strength was already considered at the peak of cultivators. If Xin Jingquan and Tanjita wanted to harm him, he could just kill them. That way no one would know. Now, asked Xiao Qian. Yes, old master said that if you have time you can go over. He has something to tell you, said the Xin family disciple. All right, please lead the way, Xiao Qian said straightforwardly. The Xin family disciple nodded and walked in front. Xiao Qian followed behind him. In the end, they really came to the previous villa again, which surprised Xiao Qian. After entering the villa, they went upstairs smoothly. They didn't expect to be besieged by Xin Jingquan and Tanjita. They stopped at the door of Xin Shanha's room, where Xiao Qian had just left. The Xin family disciple knocked on the door and Xin Shanha's tired voice came from inside. Is it White Fox, my friend? Please come in. Mr. White Fox, please. I won't go in. The Xin family disciple made a gesture and said. Xiao Qian pushed the door and saw Xin Shanha lying on the bed alone. When he saw Xiao Qian come in, he forced a smile and said, White Fox, do whatever you want. Okay. Xiao Qin sat casually in front of Xin Shanha's bed and asked curiously, Grandpa Xin, why did you ask me to come here again? I believe that you should have seen my problem during the day, but you didn't say it. Xin Shanha said, my problem actually, I know. It's incurable. That's not necessarily true, Grandpa Xin. I will think of a way. Xiao Qin didn't quite understand the meaning of Xin Shanha's words, but he still comforted him. You don't have to persuade me. In fact, from your expression I can see that you really know medicine. Xin Shanha said, it's just that my body is not sick. Xiao Qin was slightly stunned, but it seemed that although Xin Shanha was sick, he was not stupid. His mind was still clear. He nodded and said, yes, Grandpa Xin, you are poisoned. The poison is in my injured part and it can't be resolved. Xin Shanha sighed and said, if I leave, I don't know what will become of the Xin family. I don't want to find out who poisoned me. It's just a few people, so Grandpa Xin knows, then I won't say more. Xiao Qin was very surprised that Xin Shanha seemed to know everything. The prosperity of the Xin family relies on unity, but the second generation of the Xin family is like this. I saw it before, so I didn't choose the successor of the young master from them. I planned to choose directly from the third generation. Xin Shanha said, but I didn't expect that I would be tricked. I really can't rest assured where the Xin family will go in the future. Xiao Qin nodded. Big families also had their sorrows. Families like the Xiao family were already like this, not to mention a real martial arts family like the Xin family. So the only way the Xin family can maintain its current status is to rely on marriage. Otherwise, with Zheng Quan's ability, the Xin family will soon decline. Xin Shanha said, he can't be the master. Xiao Qin frowned slightly and didn't understand what Xin Shanha meant. Actually, among the children of the third generation, I am more optimistic about Jing Mao. Xin Shanha continued, but I am not optimistic about Zheng Hao. He is a mercenary. I didn't like him since I was a child, but it doesn't affect my love for Jing Mao. So, if Jing Mao wants to be the master, then Jing Xuan's marriage will become particularly important. White Fox, do you understand what I mean? You mean, let me leave Jing Xian and let her marry Tanjita's Tan family? Asked Xiao Qin. Tanjita? No. Xin Shanha smiled and shook his head. I'm talking about you, White Fox. Me? Xiao Qin thought that Xin Shanha also wanted to persuade him to separate from Xin Jingxian, but it didn't seem to be the case. I heard about Songning. I've been paying attention to Jing Mao. Xin Shanha said, you are young but you are already a demonic cultivator at the 8th stage of inner strength. Your future is limitless, so I am very relieved that you are with Jingxian. But can the demonic star sect fully support Jing Mao's ascension? Xiao Qin was really surprised this time. He didn't expect Xin Shanha to know so much even though he was lying in bed. Judging from the attitude of the Xin family today, these people didn't know who he was at all. But it was no wonder. Xin Zhenghao and Xin Jingmao were both marginal figures in the Xin family. Who would pay attention to them? Not to mention paying attention to White Fox. White Fox's name was only famous in Songning. If the Xin family didn't care about him, then it was normal that they didn't know. However, Xin Shanha even knew that he was at the 8th stage of inner strength. Obviously he paid special attention to him. One had to know that the 8th stage of inner strength was just broken through when he fought against Ling Youxiang. It was only revealed at the end. I don't think the demonic star sect will. Xiao Qin told the truth. He knew his own family well. He had nothing to do with the demonic star sect, so he couldn't lie to Xin Shanha. That's true. How can a sect participate in the battle of the Jianghu family? Xin Shanha was a little disappointed. The 8th stage of inner strength is still a little weak. Zheng Quan is at the 8th stage of inner strength. You guys are only tied. You can't suppress him. If second uncle also supports Zheng Quan, then Jing Mao will have no chance at all. That second uncle doesn't care about family affairs, right? Why would he support Uncle Jingshuan's side? Xiao Qin asked. Although he doesn't care about these things, he doesn't want the Xin family to have endless infighting. So, letting Zheng Quan take over is the simplest and easiest way. If it's someone else, it won't be legitimate and it'll take a lot of effort. So, of course if I leave, Zheng Quan will definitely take over. Xin Shanha sighed. I guess this unfilial son is aware of this, so he dares to act recklessly. Tenmuyo? What a shitty pharmacist. He gave me some bad medicine. Is he trying to make me die? Xiao Qin coughed twice and said, I'll try my best. As long as you agree to let Jing Mao take over, then I'll have the confidence to stir up trouble in the Xin family. You want to use force? Xin Shanha was slightly stunned. I can't say force, but I won't let Xin Jingquan get what he wants. Xiao Qin said, I just don't know how strong the second uncle is. Chapter 459. In fact, I don't know. Before the retreat, I was at the peak of the 10th level. Xin Shanha said. Is that so? Xiao Qin was shocked. If he was at the peak of the 10th level, after he consolidated his strength, there was still a possibility of fighting. However, if he broke through to the martial master realm, then there was really nothing he could do. You'd better not think about changing my uncle's mind because he is a stubborn person. Xin Shanha said, he is very self-centered. It is difficult for others to change what he has decided. Okay, I will think of a way. Xiao Qin nodded. By the way, if you are cured, then the matters of the Shen family will not be decided by others, right? In theory, yes, but if Shen Jingxuan's ascension is a foregone conclusion, it will be useless even if I am cured. Xin Shanha sighed. Besides, it is impossible for me to be cured. My poison cannot be cured. No one can cure it. In fact, in addition to Tan Mui, I have also looked for other pharmacists. Don't think that all these years I am the head of the Shen family for nothing. I also have my own connections. Understood, then I will go back first. Xiao Qin said. If the Devil Star sect does not intervene, then, you should go back with Jingxian and leave the Shen family. Don't get involved in these things. It is not good for you. Xin Shan has said, you can set up your own sect in Songning or take them to the Devil Star sect. In short, don't stay in Lan City. Tan Mui is narrow-minded. If Jingxian does not marry Tanjita, then you will be in danger. It is not certain who will be in danger. Xiao Qin blinked his eyes and left Xin Shanha's room. Xiao Qin left Xin Shanha's villa and returned to his room. He felt a little emotional. It seemed that Xin Shanha understood very well. It was just that the situation of the Shen family was too complicated for him to control. If he jumped out to question Xin Jingquan, then he would probably die faster. Xin Jingquan would definitely kill him. It could be seen that Xin Shanha didn't want to die just like that. He was worried about the Shen family. He knew about the White Fox's background and wanted to use the Devil Star sect's influence to stabilize the Shen family. He said that he was optimistic about Xin Jingmao, but he might not really be optimistic about Xin Jingmao. Perhaps at the moment, Xin Jingmao was the only one who did not have ulterior motives. After all, Xin Jingmao's strength was clear for all to see. He was at level 5 inner force, which wasn't low at all. Although he would be considered a young talent in an ordinary family, he was nothing in the martial arts clan. The medicinal herbs cooked in the electric clay pot were ready. Xiao Qin directly consumed the medicinal herbs and began to train, consolidating his 8th level Qi refinement realm strength. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Xiao Qin let out a long breath. The peak of the 8th level Qi refinement realm. Perhaps it was because of the change of medicinal herbs, the first medicinal herb was especially effective. Or perhaps there was still some demonic energy left in his body. In short, Xiao Qin consolidated his strength in one fell swoop and climbed to the peak of the 8th level Qi refinement realm, which surprised him. Wasn't it too fast? It was a little unreal. Moreover, he didn't feel any pain when he took the medicine this time. It was obviously the effect of the devil stump fruit. It was really a good thing. Elder Heaven Ancestor, am I very powerful? Xiao Qin said with some arrogance. I realize that I'm really a genius. I've never seen such a shameless person. A while ago your strength stagnated and you sighed. Have you forgotten about it so quickly? Elder Heaven Ancestor snorted coldly. Xiao Qin naturally didn't forget about it. It was just that things had been going smoothly recently, which made him feel a little smug again. As soon as he finished cultivating, the doorbell rang. Xiao Qin walked over and opened the door. He was a little surprised to see Tanjita. White Fox, how about I take you out for a walk? Tanjita said. The scenery of Lan City is very beautiful. A small place like Songning can't compare. You take me out? Are you trying to persuade me to separate from Xin Jingxian, or find a place to beat me up? Xiao Qin asked. You. Tanjita was obviously stunned by Xiao Qin's straightforwardness. His face turned a little red. That was indeed what he was thinking. On the surface he was asking Xiao Qin to take a walk, but in reality he was asking him to give up on Xin Jingxian. If he didn't comply he would beat him up and let him know how powerful he was. However, he didn't expect that Xiao Qin would expose him on the spot. Tanjita's face turned a little ugly and he was in a dilemma. Let's go. Xiao Qin smiled. Even if Tanjita didn't look for him, he still wanted to end the matter here. Xin Shanha had made it clear to him, so even if Xiao Qin intervened in the affairs of the Shin family, it wouldn't be considered a busybody. Great. Tanjita was stunned and said, "Now, I'm a little impressed by your courage. You're a man. However, you should understand that sometimes courage is useless. The cultivation world pays attention to strength, not courage. No matter how much courage you have, it's useless if you don't have the strength." "You mean you really want to beat me up?" Xiao Qin looked at Tanjita with a puzzled face. "No way. I was joking before." Tanjita was a little speechless. Damn, it turned out that this guy was joking. He thought he was really brave, but it turned out that he didn't dare to do anything to him. This made Tanjita feel like he was punching cotton. No matter how arrogant you were, it was useless if the other party didn't know about it. "No, I'm treating you to some fun," Tanjita said. "I knew it. No matter what, I'm a guest of the Shin family. You're here to accompany me on behalf of the Shin family, so you can't neglect me." Xiao Qin said, "By the way, I heard that Lan City is rich in antiques. Why don't you show me around and give me two?" "Antiques?" Tanjita's expression became a little strange. This white fox was really ignorant and fearless. How dare he ask for something from me? He was a little annoyed. "I'm giving it to you. Do you dare to take it back?" "Why wouldn't I dare to take something from you, Brother Jita?" Xiao Qin smiled and said, "Aren't you taking me to go shopping? It's fine if we're just going to some scenic area. We're two men, so it's easy for people to misunderstand." "Then what do you mean?" Tanjita was a little mad. "Nothing. I just won't go if you don't give me an antique." Xiao Qin stopped after he finished speaking. Tanjita really wanted to beat up Xiao Qin on the spot. What kind of person was he? Not only did he go back on his words, but he was also shameless enough to ask for something from someone else. However, Tanjita changed his mind. He was going to teach Xiao Qin a lesson anyway, so it was fine to let him have some fun for the time being. Thus he said, "All right, what do you want? I'll give it to you." "You should have said so earlier. I know that your father is the chief apothecary and your family is filthy rich." Xiao Qin patted Tanjita's shoulder. Tanjita sneered in his heart. "How dare you pat my shoulder? You're so disrespectful. You're going to cry later." The two of them went all the way out of the Shin family's villa area. In the parking lot of the Shin family's courtyard, a BMW X6M was parked. Tanjita opened the door and Xiao Qin got in the car. Tanjita's mouth flashed a trace of a sneer. The car started and drove all the way to the city's most high-end antique market. On the way, Tanjita didn't even bother to talk to Xiao Qin. He originally wanted to persuade Xiao Qin not to refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, but this guy looked very arrogant. To deal with such a person, it was to make him afraid. If he was beaten into submission, then everything would be solved. After parking the car in the parking lot in front of the antique market, Tanjita got off the car with Xiao Qin. As soon as they got off, two people came over. "Young Master Tan, what a coincidence. How come you have time to visit the antique market? Who is this beside you? Why is he wearing a mask? Is this the clown you hired? Let me introduce you. This is White Fox. I heard that he is Jingshuan's boyfriend. I brought him here to take a look." Before Tanjita could finish, the leader of the two people wearing a black trench coat reached out and pushed Xiao Qin. "Young Master Tan, who is this? Why is he so arrogant? Isn't Jingxian the sister-in-law? How did he become her boyfriend?" The man in black was called Jianghu, one of the 4 young masters of Lan City. The 4 young masters of Lan City, as the name suggested, were made up of 4 people. The eldest was naturally Shin Jingtian from the Shin family, the second was Tanjita, the third was the man in black Zheng Qinghu, whose father was the vice president of the Lan City Warrior Guild, and the fourth was Ma Jinhan, whose father was the second shopkeeper of Lan City's Warrior Market. These people all had deep backgrounds. It could be said that in the martial arts world of Lan City, these 4 people could call the wind and summon the rain. Today, Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan were secretly invited by Tanjita to help. The eldest Shin Jingtian would not be able to make an appearance, but it did not matter to the two of them. That's right. I've heard of people pretending to be pretentious before, but I've never heard of pretending to be a fox and wearing a mask. Do you think you're Spider-Man? Ma Jinhan sneered sarcastically. However, Xiao Qin did not pay attention to him. He only flashed away from Zheng Qinghu's hand and said to Tanjita, "Little Tan, do you know these idiots? Is there something wrong with their brains?" Tanjita was a little stunned. Who in Lan City would dare to scold them? However, Xiao Qin had scolded them and even asked him if he knew these 2 idiots. How was he supposed to answer? Did he know them or not? It didn't seem right. Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan also widened their eyes. They had received a text message from Tanjita today. He was here to teach a country bumpkin a lesson and humiliate him. He wanted to let him know the martial arts world and what a true master was. Therefore, they had always felt that this was a very relaxing and pleasant thing to do. They had done this kind of thing countless times, and their opponents were all scared witless and kowtowed to admit their mistakes. However, this person actually dared to scold them. Originally, according to the plan, Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan would each humiliate Xiao Chen with a sentence and continuously raise Tanjita's background. Then Xiao Chen would retreat in the face of difficulties. If he persisted in going about things the wrong way, then they would show their strength and directly intimidate this country bumpkin from a small place like Songning. However, to their surprise, before they could even say 2.5 sentences, the country bumpkin in front of them turned the tables and directly insulted them as idiots. Chapter 460. Who are you scolding? Zheng Qinghu asked with a gloomy expression. Of course I'm scolding you. Don't you think that your actions just now were no different from that of an idiot? Xiao Chen replied calmly, is there any point in acting? Your acting wasn't that good. Are you a clown hired by a monkey? Who are you calling a monkey? Tanjita jumped out with a whoosh and pointed at White Fox as if his tail had been stepped on. Xiao Chen was a little speechless. This was a confession without being pressed. He had thought that Tanjita, the mastermind, would have a higher IQ. He didn't expect that he would be even lower than Chao Yuliang and Qin Jinping. However, it wasn't surprising at times. These young masters had always been high and mighty in Lan City. Stepping on others didn't require IQ at all. It was a one-sided crushing of strength. What I meant was that Qinghu and Jinhan are my friends. White Fox, it's not good to scold him like that, right? Tanjita knew that he had misspoken and hurriedly explained. Xiao Chen looked at Tanjita and said earnestly, actually, I think it's better if you don't play with these two anymore. There's something wrong with their intellect. When they were young, they weren't fully developed. If you play with them, your IQ will easily be dragged down. Do you know why Xinjing Xian doesn't like you? It's because she doesn't like idiots. Kid, who are you scolding when you talk about idiots every time you open your mouth? I'll give you a chance now. Get the F***ck out of Lan City immediately and you can still keep your life. Otherwise, I'm not afraid of threatening you. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave tonight. Zheng Qinghu sneered with a sinister expression. When that time comes, no one will be able to protect you. Even if you hide in the Shin family, it won't work. I can't leave. Why don't you demonstrate for me? Xiao Chen scratched his head and said, if I can't leave, then I can't leave. It just so happens that I want to stay for a while. However, you mean that there won't be any cars at night, so I can only disguise myself as a wheel and get the F***ck out of Lan City? Is that what you mean? Quack. Zheng Qinghu was stunned and so was Ma Jinhan. Both of them looked at Xiao Chen in astonishment. Previously, they thought that Xiao Chen was scolding them when he said to demonstrate, but after listening to the latter part of his words, they realized that the one with the IQ problem was the kid in front of them. Brat, I'll tell you the truth. If you don't get lost, we'll kill you. Zheng Qinghu said. But I don't know how to do it. Xiao Chen said. Then there's no other way, just wait for your death. Ma Jinhan snorted coldly. Why don't you two give me a demonstration? As soon as Xiao Chen's voice fell, he made his move without any warning. To be exact, he made a kick. Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan were both kicked in the crotch by Xiao Chen. The two of them screamed and rolled on the ground while covering their crotches. Then Xiao Chen calmly turned his head and looked at Tanjita as if nothing had happened. Little Tan, your two friends are really nice people. Show me how to do it. Tanjita's face turned a little green. He knew Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan's strength. They were both stage 6 inner force martial artists, one level lower than him. However, they were already the cream of the crop among the younger generation. They were actually kicked by Xiao Chen to the point where they were rolling on the ground. Although it was a sneak attack, it was still fast enough. That White Fox. Tanjita pulled Xiao Chen to the side and whispered, oh no, you've offended them. You won't have a good life. Why don't you apologize to them and I'll mediate between them. After that, you can leave Lan City immediately. Maybe they'll let you go. I don't have any other skills, but I know how to offend people. I'll forget about the apology. Thank you for your kindness. Shall we go buy some antiques? Xiao Chen glanced at Tanjita and said directly. Huh. Tanjita was a little stunned. He didn't know if this Xiao Chen was careless or careless. He was already in such a state, yet he wasn't nervous at all. He could not help but say in a low voice, of the two of them, that Zheng Qinghu is the son of the Warrior Guild's Vice President Zheng, and that Ma Jinhan is the son of shopkeeper Ma of the Warriors Market. Do you think you will have a good ending after offending them? Didn't you say you were going to buy antiques for me? Are you still going to buy them? Xiao Qin asked a question that didn't answer it. This. Tanjita glanced at Jianghu from the corner of his eyes. To be honest, he didn't expect things to turn out this way. This Xiao Qin was able to kick Jianghu and Ma Jinhan to such a state, so his strength was at least on par with his own. It seemed that he had underestimated his enemy and didn't take him seriously. Jianghu winked at Tanjita. The three of them usually played together and had a tacit understanding of each other. With just one look, Tanjita knew that Jianghu meant to calm down Xiao Qin first, while he went to get reinforcements. Thinking of this, Tanjita nodded and said, "Well, since the white fox is interested, let's go in and have a look." Tanjita couldn't figure out how this white fox's brain worked. Should he say that he was courageous, or was there something wrong with his brain? Didn't he know fear? Or was he a student and a rogue cultivator who simply didn't know the cruelty of the martial arts world? Xiao Qin naturally saw Tanjita and Jianghu exchanging glances. He guessed that Jianghu might have gone to get reinforcements, but Xiao Qin didn't mind. Since he had Xin Shanha's token, allowing him to intervene in the affairs of the Shen family, the first thing he had to do now was to establish his prestige. Strength was not something that could be spoken of, but displayed. Although he could tell the Shin family to let them investigate how awesome he was at the Songning Righteous and Demonic Summit, what was the use of that? What he heard and what he saw were two different concepts. Therefore Xiao Qin didn't mind Tanjita making things bigger. The bigger it was, the more opportunities he would have. This was like a doze hitting a pillow. Watching Xiao Qin and Tanjita enter the antique market, Jianghu got up from the ground. Xiao Qin's kick was not light, and his balls were almost broken. Although he was a martial artist, he didn't practice the iron ball skill. Covering his lower body, he limped to the car on the side of the road. Ma Jinhan also stumbled behind and got in the car. "Brother Hu, this kid's strength is not weak. No wonder he is so pretentious." Ma Jinhan said, "With just the two of us, we can't take revenge. Let's find someone." "I have the same intention. However, I can contact a group of martial artists to help, but the cost." Jianghu's father was the vice president of Lan City's warrior guild. Naturally, he knew some experts. However, to invite these people to help, reputation alone was not enough. He had to spend money. Money is not a problem. "Brother Hu, don't worry. We don't have anything else, but our family is rich." Ma Jinhan's father was the vice manager of the warriors market. Of course, how much could a vice manager earn? However, with the authority of this position, he had earned a lot of dirty money. Ma Jinhan was also full of confidence. Jianghu nodded. In fact, he also had a little money. However, he was working for Tanjita. Even if he spent the money, he might not be able to get it back. Naturally, he wouldn't be a fool. However, Ma Jinhan was different. His family was rich, so he didn't care about this. He took out his phone from his pocket. After thinking for a while, he posted some targeted missions on the Warriors Guild's platform. In other words, only the designated people could receive the mission. It's done. 6 experts have been called. We can handle this lineup, right? Don't let the higher-ups know. Jianghu was a little nervous after calling the people. After all, the president of the Warriors Guild and his father were not of one mind. If they took the opportunity to make a fuss, it would be troublesome. "It's okay. This time we are standing up for Brother Kita. When the time comes, Brother Kita will take the blame for us." Ma Jinhan said indifferently, 6 is not too little? What level are they and how much money? 6 is not too little? 2 7 stage, 2 peak 7 stage, 1 8 stage and even 1 peak 8 stage. Jianghu said, "Just now we were hot-headed and picked ruthless people. Now, don't you think we are making a mountain out of a molehill? Sure, kill him. Do it well. Brother Kita will not treat us badly." Ma Jinhan said. Although these two people's families were also very powerful, Tanjita's father was an apothecary. He could often help them get some rare medicinal liquids and pills. These were things that even their father would have a hard time getting. "That's right. These people asked for a total of 10 million. Jianghu said. "No problem." Ma Jinhan readily agreed. One could imagine how much dirty money his father had gotten from his position as the vice shopkeeper. Tanjita looked at the message on his phone and a cold smile appeared on his face. 6 martial artists and one of them was at the peak 8 stage. This time the white fox was dead. Xiao Qian's 6 senses were sharp. With a slight glance, he saw the contents of Tanjita's message. He sneered in his heart and pointed at an ancient jade. "Little Tan, this ancient jade is not bad. Buy it for me." "Ah?" Tanjita was immersed in the excitement of a group of masters coming and directly crushing the white fox. When he suddenly heard the white fox's words, he was a little impatient. A person who was about to die still wanted to buy things. Buy my ass. So he said, "What ancient jade? It doesn't look good. Forget it. Let's walk around." "You're not buying it for me?" Xiaoqin asked. "It's not that I don't want to buy it. It's useless and not good looking. Let's look at other things." Tanjita said. "Oh, then forget it. I see that you don't want to buy it. I'm going back to the Shin family. You walk around by yourself. It's boring." Xiaoqin said and turned to leave. He didn't give Tanjita any chance to speak. His speed made Tanjita speechless. Hey, wait. How could Tanjita let Xiaoqin go? Jianghu had already found a thug. If Xiaoqin left, who would he fight? When the thug came, not only would he have to pay, but he also couldn't teach the white fox a lesson. This person had already returned to the Shin family. He couldn't possibly rush into the Shin family and beat them up, right? That wasn't realistic. Is there anything else? Xiaoqin asked. Chapter 461. I'll buy it, I'll buy it. Tanjita was a little helpless. In order to stabilize Xiaoqin, he could only agree. You should have said it earlier. Xiaoqin returned and pointed to the ancient jade. This is it. Boss, how much is this ancient jade? Tanjita glanced at the ancient jade that Xiaoqin pointed out. There was nothing special about it. It wouldn't be too expensive, so he asked directly. 5 million. The boss stretched out 5 fingers and quoted directly. What? 5 million? Boss, are you mistaken? Such an ordinary ancient jade costs 5 million? Tanjita was stunned and said, Are you trying to cheat me because I don't know the industry? At most 100,000. Are you selling it? This is an ancient jade unearthed from a famous ancient dynasty tomb. I have an expert certificate here. Don't make trouble if you don't have money. The boss said disdainfully. Tanjita didn't expect a piece of broken jade to be so expensive. His face was a little ugly. This white fox's vision was really unique. He just randomly picked a real antique. Before, he didn't want to spend more than 100,000, but now it suddenly became 5 million. Are you buying it or not? If you don't buy it, I'll leave. Xiaoqin asked with some impatience. Originally, Tanjita wanted to waste some time with the boss. Anyway, it didn't matter if the boss sold it or not. As long as he successfully waited for those masters, then everything would be fine. He didn't expect that just when he had this idea, Xiaoqin impatiently urged him. It made him a little unhappy in his heart, but he couldn't show it on the surface. He could only say, buy it, don't bargain. However, the boss seemed to cooperate with Xiaoqin and said directly, this shop guarantees authenticity. No bargaining. If you don't want to buy it, don't stay here. Tanjita was bitter. He hesitated and asked tentatively, then, after I buy it, if I find a problem when I go home, can I return it? We are a trustworthy shop. Don't talk about problems. If there are no problems, you can also return it. Free return within 7 days, provided that the item is not damaged or replaced. The boss said directly. Alright, then I'll buy it. Swipe my card. After hearing this, Tanjita's heart calmed down. It would be easy to get a refund. He would buy it first, and when the white fox was killed or injured, he would get the ancient jade back. This way he wouldn't lose a single cent. From the looks of it, it was equivalent to the deposit of 5 million yuan. Alright. The owner asked a worker to help Tanjita swipe his card. Then he quickly and carefully wrapped up the ancient jade and handed it to Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin put it away with satisfaction. Tanjita thought that if they were to fight later, he might break this ancient jade. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to return it. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but say, White Fox, this ancient jade, how about I hold it for you? Keep it in your pocket and don't lose it. It's quite expensive. Oh, no need. I can't lose it. Xiaoqin said directly. Tanjita felt somewhat gloomy. He could only tell Jianghu later to search for the ancient jade on Xiaoqin's body before he beat him up when he found someone to come. After secretly sending a message to Jianghu, Tanjita was relieved. Watching Xiaoqin continue to wander in the antique market, he felt more at ease. Humans die for wealth as birds die for food. Didn't he just want me to spend some money for him? But it was also good. If he lost his life for some benefits that he couldn't get, he probably wouldn't have a place to explain himself. However, what made Tanjita really puzzled was that this white fox seemed to have a little problem with his IQ. His style of doing things was like a primary school student. How could such a person get the favor of Xinjing Xian? He was greedy, arrogant, and had no sense of crisis. It was reasonable to say that Shen Jingxian shouldn't like such a person. Could it be that this guy had some unknown merits? But no matter how he looked, he couldn't find anything. He even wondered if he was a fake boyfriend that Shen Jingxian hired at the last minute. But after thinking about it, it was impossible. First of all, the Shen family didn't urge Shen Jingxian to get engaged. There was no reason for her to hire a boyfriend in a hurry. It was even more impossible to say that it was for him. Before Shen Jingxian came back, she didn't know that he could come to her to propose marriage. There was no need for her to find someone to pretend to be her boyfriend. Following behind Xiao Qin walked and stopped from time to time. However, to his disappointment, apart from the spirit chi fluctuations in the piece of ancient jade, there was nothing else. It seemed that this kind of spiritual jade couldn't be bought easily. It could only be found by chance. It was estimated that for a long time, the antique market in Lan City wouldn't see spiritual jade again. However, as Xiao Qin walked in front, he kept feeling that someone was following him. But he didn't pay much attention to it. In his opinion, it should be Zheng Qinghu or Ma Jinhan following him so that they could find someone to deal with him. After walking one round, they left the antique market. Xiao Qin didn't have anything he wanted, so he couldn't be bothered to buy it. This made Tanjita heave a sigh of relief. He only had about 6 million in his bank card. Now that he had spent 5 million, the remaining 1 million was basically not enough for him to do anything. That's him. Kill him. As soon as they left the antique market, Zheng Qinghu's sharp eyes spotted Xiao Qin. He pointed angrily and ordered the people standing behind him with a fierce expression. All 6 of them were top-notch martialists registered in the Lan City Martialists Guild. Lan City was not a small city. Even though it could not be compared to some developed cities with a large number of martialists, it could be said to be filled with experts in its surroundings. These people all knew each other, but they were a little puzzled. Why did they have to gang up on a masked man? But as long as someone was paying, they didn't care. The warrior at the peak of stage 8 inner force spoke first. Let's go together. This is the downtown area. Let's end this quickly. After we kill him, drag him to the car. After the warrior at the peak of stage 8 inner force finished speaking, he took the lead and rushed forward. The others nodded and surrounded Xiao Qin. Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan stood at the side with a sneer. Xiao Qin's kick had hurt them so much. It was finally time for revenge. Qinghu, Jinhan, what are you doing? Why did you find people to gang up on White Fox? Is this a misunderstanding? In order to clear himself of suspicion, Tanjita said, White Fox, why don't you kneel and apologize to them? I'll mediate and you can leave Lan City. How about that? Of course, he wasn't doing this because he was afraid of trouble, but because he didn't want Shen Jingxian to know that he had killed Xiao Qin. As for Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan, although they were the scapegoats, it wasn't a big deal given their backgrounds. Tanjita could just compensate them with some cultivation elixirs afterwards. The peak of the 8th layer punched towards Xiao Qin's forehead. The martial technique that he practiced was a powerful fist technique. Normally speaking, a single punch would be enough to split the opponent's brain. Even if it was a martial artist of the same level as him, he would be able to kill them. However, what surprised him was that just as his punch was about to hit Xiao Qin, his vision blurred and he suddenly lost his target. Xiao Qin had disappeared without any warning, leaving nothing in front of him. When he realized that something was wrong and wanted to look for Xiao Qin quickly made a move. He used a dark flame palm, but he didn't use his full strength. He only used 80% of his strength, and it sent the peak 8th layer male flying like he was swatting a fly. The warrior didn't even have time to react when he felt his body suddenly fly up like a cannonball. He flew through the air and finally fell into a pile of garbage near the antique market with a bang, letting out a blood-curdling scream. The garbage pile was stinky, flies were flying, and maggots were swarming. The warrior at the peak of stage 8 inner force wanted to get up, but all his bones felt like they were broken. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't stand up again. A stench hit his nose, causing him to faint directly. This sudden turn of events stunned everyone present. Originally, when Zheng Qinghu saw the man at the peak of the 8th floor make his move, he wanted to shout and search his body. However, before he could shout, the man at the peak of the 8th floor was already dead. On the other side, Xiao Qin didn't stay idle. After hitting the warrior at the peak of stage 8 inner force, Xiao Qin directly walked toward the 5 warriors. 2 of the stage 7 inner force warriors were grabbed by his hair and slammed into each other's faces. With a muffled "pa" sound, the 2 of them fainted on the ground. They were bleeding from all 7 orifices, and it was unknown whether they were still alive or not. Without stopping, Xiaoqin turned around and grabbed the two martial artists at the peak of Stage 7 inner force. He wanted to do the same thing to them. However, the two of them were already on guard. After being grabbed by Xiaoqin, they quickly twisted their bodies trying to break free. Xiaoqin couldn't be bothered to get entangled with them. He simply kicked each of them in the chest. Because he didn't use any martial arts, Xiaoqin didn't hold back this time. But even without martial arts, his attack was equivalent to the peak of Stage 9 inner force. The two of them were directly kicked 8 feet away. Their heads fell to the ground with a dong sound, and a large pool of blood flowed out. It was unknown whether they were still alive or not. With a single move, Xiaoqin took care of 5 martial artists in a row. It happened in the blink of an eye. The Stage 8 inner energy martial artist was terrified. He no longer wanted to gang up on Xiaoqin like he did at the beginning. Instead, his expression changed and he turned to run. A dignified Stage 8 inner force warrior was actually scared away. Jianghu was dumbfounded. Ma Jinhan was also dumbfounded. Tanjita was even more shocked and speechless. Originally, he thought that there was something wrong with Xiaoqian's brain and IQ. But now it seemed that it wasn't the case at all. With his strength, he didn't care about these conspiracies. In the face of absolute strength, everything was empty talk. Previously, Tanjita thought that his strength was similar to Xiaoqian's. Now, it seemed that he was lucky that he didn't make a move. Otherwise, he would be miserable. Xiaoqin didn't chase after them. They were just martial artists who helped him. If they ran away, so be it. He directly looked at Jianghu and Ma Jinhan and said with a sneer, "You two only found these few pieces of trash." Chapter 462. You, don't mess around, I am the son of the Lan City Warrior Guild's vice president. Jianghu's face turned pale when he saw Xiaoqin looking at him. That's right, don't go overboard. I am the son of the Lan City Warrior Market's second shopkeeper. If you touch us, I can guarantee that you won't be able to leave Lan City. Is that so? Xiaoqin said coldly. Have you ever thought that you were messing around? Did you not go overboard? Did you go overboard? I didn't do anything to you and only taught you a simple lesson. I didn't expect you to be so daring as to find people to gang up on me. Tell me, do you think I will let you go? We are different from them. It is impossible that you do not know who we are, unless you want to form a death grudge with us. Jianghu roared in a threatening manner. I have already contacted our elders. When they arrive, it will be the day of your death. If you obediently admit your mistake and leave Lan City, we will not pursue this matter. Ma Jinhan suddenly felt confident. Oh. In fact, Xiaoqin did not intend to do anything to Jianghu and Ma Jinhan. After all, their identities were different. Xiaoqin wanted to establish his authority and not offend all the forces in Lan City. He originally wanted to scare them, but he did not expect them to find people again. Xiaoqin was very surprised that they would look for their parents when they could not win. He thought that the world of ordinary people was like this, but he did not expect the world of martial arts to be the same. However, this was not what Xiaoqin wanted to see. Although he was not afraid of trouble, he did not want to offend the people of the Warrior Guild. If these people appeared and collectively chased him away, Xiaoqin would be in a difficult position. However, since he had already done it, Xiaoqin could only take it one step at a time. This was not the time to give in, so Xiaoqin said coldly, "Do as you wish. White Fox, I think it's better to forget about this matter. Apologize and I'll mediate. Otherwise, when the people from the Warrior Guild arrive and they issue a bounty, all the warriors will come to deal with you. No matter how powerful you are, you won't be able to walk out of Lan City alive." Tanjita said to Xiaoqin. In fact, Tanjita also knew that Xiaoqin had only beaten up Jianghu and Ma Jinhan. Even if their father came, he would at most scare Xiaoqin and teach him a lesson. As for issuing a bounty, that was absolutely impossible. Although it was only released on Lan City's local platform, if anyone spread the news to the headquarters of the Warrior Guild or the Hong Consortium, they would not be able to get away with it. Of course, they might be stupid. However, in Tanjita's opinion, they were not idiots. So, it was better to scare Xiaoqin and get him to scram quickly. Speaking of the devil, he arrived. The first to arrive was Ma Jinhan's father, Ma Yuqian. As his name suggested, he was indeed very rich. Soon after, another middle-aged man arrived. This person was Jianghu's father, Zheng Jiba. Both of them were experts, but they did not make a move on Xiaoqin. Ma Yuqian glanced at Zheng Jiba, waiting for him to make a decision. In fact, in Zheng Jiba's heart, he already knew what happened. Previously, when Jianghu was looking for people, he understood that Jianghu was standing up for Tanjita, but he didn't interfere. After all, Tan Muyo was also someone that he and Ma Yuqian wanted to curry favor with. The three of them could be said to be a small interest group. Tan Muyo was the leader, Zheng Jiba was in charge of clearing up the connections, Ma Yuqian was in charge of purchasing medicinal ingredients, and Tan Muyo was in charge of refining medicine. Refining medicine would cost money. With a few of them working together, they could swallow hundreds of millions of dirty money every year. What was the most valuable thing in the warrior's market? It was not the medicinal ingredients, but the refined medicinal liquids and pills. Many of these things had a sky-high price. Tan Muyo used the medicinal ingredients that were normally lost to refine medicinal liquids and pills and sold them through Zheng Jiba's channels to obtain huge profits. In this, Tan Muyo was an indispensable link. Therefore, among the three of them he had the final say and received the most money. As for Ma Yuqian, who was in charge of purchasing medicinal ingredients in Lan City's warriors' market, he was also an indispensable link. This was because even if Tan Muyo wanted to take on private jobs and refine his own medicinal pills and liquids, he would not be able to buy enough raw materials. Therefore Ma Yuqian's benefits came second. Although it was second, Ma Yuqian was the richest. This was because from the purchasing process he could earn a lot of commissions. Moreover, he could also get a lot of the pills and liquids. Zheng Jiba, in fact, took the least, and he also had to build up connections to get people to buy pills and medicinal liquids from him in private. However, this was a job that any martial artist with a bit of status and connections could do, so Zheng Jiba did not complain. However, outside, Zheng Jiba and Ma Yuqian were together, and Zheng Jiba was still the leader. After all, Zheng Jiba had a lot of connections and was the vice president of the Warriors Guild. His status was slightly higher than Ma Yuqian's. Who are you? I now suspect that you are a wanted criminal of the Warriors Guild. You are wearing a mask and do not show your true face. I will request the Warriors Guild's law enforcement hall to verify your identity. This Zheng Jiba was obviously not a reckless person. He spoke and did things in a way that no one could refute. Now, I will have to trouble you to return to the Warriors Guild with us. Before we confirm your true identity, you are temporarily under our control. Of course, you can also choose to escape. That means that you have a guilty conscience. I will request the Warriors Guild to put you on the national wanted list. This person was smarter than Qin Huanling. After all, he was the vice president of the Warriors Guild in a big city. He was different from the one in Songning City. His speech was completely official. If Xiao Qin refused to comply, it would mean that there was something wrong with him. At that time he would put him on the wanted list. Even if the wanted list was wrong, it would have nothing to do with him. He could totally say that this person wore a mask and refused to cooperate with the investigation. However, Xiao Qin could not take off his mask. He did not want his identity to be exposed so quickly. For a moment he was in a dilemma. If he followed Zheng Jiba to the Warriors Guild, who knew what would happen when he reached his territory? But if he did not go, Zheng Jiba would probably put him on the wanted list. Xiao Qin could not help but feel a sense of hostility. He wanted to kill Zheng Jiba with his palm, but he held back in the end. But what should he do now? A smile flashed across Tanjita's face. He looked coldly at Xiao Qin and secretly admired Zheng Jiba. With just a few words he had pushed Xiao Qin to a point where he did not know what to do. In his opinion, it was already good enough to expel Xiao Qin from Lan City. But now it would be too easy for him if he left. Now he could not even leave even if he wanted to. His view and vision were still not good enough. Look at how awesome Zheng Jiba was. He had used his identity and power to the fullest. For a vice president of the Warriors Guild to be able to do this, it was already pretty awesome. Zheng Qinghu and Ma Jinhan also stood at the side and looked at Xiao Qin with a smug smile. Wasn't he acting cool just now? Is it okay now? You've put yourself in the trap of acting cool. Sai, White Fox, I told you just now that you could leave after apologizing. But now, you see, the Warriors Guild has intervened. I can't do anything about it. Tanjita sighed and pretended to be helpless as he said to Xiao Qin, I advise you to obediently follow Vice President Zheng. Otherwise it will not be fun if you become a wanted criminal. Alright, Tanjita. I'm sure you know better than me what happened today. You don't have to pretend anymore. What's the use of pretending now that things have come to this? Xiao Qin narrowed his eyes and looked at Tanjita. Tanjita felt a little awkward. Indeed, he was the one who arranged everything today. But now Xiao Qin was right. What was the point of hiding now? There were only two paths in front of Xiao Qin. One was to obediently follow Zheng Jiba back. But if he went back he probably wouldn't be able to come out. In Zheng Jiba's territory, it was too easy to kill someone. The other was to escape. With his strength he could probably escape. But after he escaped, he would have to bear the consequences of never having a day of peace. He would become a wanted criminal. Even if he wore a mask, it would be useless. As long as the people from the Warriors Guild's law enforcement hall appeared and verified with the Shin family, Shin Jingxin and Shin Jinghao wouldn't dare to hide Xiao Chen's true identity. When that time came, it would be easy to find him. That's right, White Fox. I admit that I'm the one who wants to target you. The reason is very simple. You don't know how to appreciate favors. Tanjita admitted it. He took a step forward and looked at Xiao Chen coldly. You dare to fight with me over the woman I like? Don't you know that in the martial arts circle of Lan City, no one has ever dared to defy my will? Originally, I didn't want to kill you. As long as you leave obediently, not only will I not do anything to you, but I will also give you some cultivation herbs. But since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, I have no other choice. It's good that you admit it. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and calculated in his heart. If there was no other way, he could only go to the Warriors Guild first. On the way there, he would think of a way to contact Hongzhu or Song Huawu and ask them to protect him. Based on their status, either of them would be able to settle this matter. Tanjita, it seems like your father isn't a good person either. You're just a man who's about to die. You don't have to worry about this. You'd better worry about yourself. Tanjita sneered. The one wearing the mask, what are you waiting for? Come with us. Zheng Jiba said indifferently. Of course you can also choose to escape. Xiao Chen knew that he had to make a decision. However, just as Xiao Chen was hesitating and everyone else present thought that Xiao Chen was finished, a figure appeared beside Xiao Chen without any warning. Chapter 463. This old man knows this person. Go do what you need to do. This was an old man who looked to be in his 50s. Of course, it was possible that he was even older. Because martial artists had an extended lifespan, their looks did not age that easily. Therefore, before knowing his strength, it was impossible to determine his true age. However, the feeling that this person gave Xiao Chen was indeed very strong. This was because even Xiao Chen had not sensed his appearance. It was simply too strange without any warning. Seeing the sudden appearance of this old man, everyone's eyes narrowed and they couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Zheng Jiba's expression was a bit ugly, but he had to force a smile and said, Yes. Then we'll be leaving first. There were no superfluous words. There was only agreement. The others did not even say anything. They only bowed and quickly left with Zheng Jiba. Even wealthy Ma, who had an equally prominent status, was avoiding eye contact with Zheng Jiba. As for Tanjita, Zheng Qinghu, and Ma Jinhan, they followed Zheng Jiba and the others and quickly left. They were afraid that if they were too slow, they would provoke the old man's anger. Xiao Chen was very surprised by this person's appearance. He didn't know him and he was sure that he had never seen him before. But why would he help him out of trouble? Obviously this person was a big shot. Even Zheng Jiba was afraid of him. Just one sentence from him was enough to make the arrogant Zheng Jiba give up. This person either had a high status, was powerful, or was both. Senior, thank you for helping me out. Although he was confused, no matter what, this person had helped Xiao Chen. Out of courtesy, Xiao Chen had to thank him. I'm sorry, but I didn't help you out for nothing. Come with me. The old man looked at Xiao Chen and said indifferently. A strong domineering aura was released and instantly enveloped Xiao Chen's body, making Xiao Chen feel very suppressed. Expert, he was definitely an expert. Xiao Chen's heart trembled, but he still nodded and followed. If such a person wanted to deal with him, there was nothing he could do. Besides, he had helped him out of trouble, so he shouldn't have any malicious intent towards him. On the side of the antique market, there was a small street. There was basically no one there. The houses on both sides of the street had been demolished. It was planned to build a big antique market, but the construction hadn't started yet. Xiao Chen watched as the old man casually found a stone staircase in the ruins and sat down. Xiao Chen followed and sat down on the rubble opposite the old man. He looked at the old man and said, feeling it was strange, Senior, you were looking for me? Show me the stone you bought in the antique market just now, the old man said straightforwardly. Xiao Chen was slightly taken aback. Thoughts raced through his mind, but in the end he still took out the ancient jade and handed it to the old man before him. Xiao Chen was very puzzled. Did this person save him just to take a look at the ancient jade that he bought? The old man took the ancient jade and didn't say anything. He just held it in his hand and looked at it. After a while he said, Why did you buy this jade? I have a hobby of collecting antiques. Moreover, Tanjita paid for it, so I casually cheated him. Xiao Qin said with a bitter smile. Collecting antiques? Casually cheated? The old man frowned and his sharp eyes swept over Xiao Qian's face. Then he said, You're lying. Did you buy this jade casually? Yes. Is there anything wrong with this jade? Xiao Qian asked. This is a spiritual jade. I think you know it. Don't tell me you don't know. The old man sneered. There was only one spiritual jade in the antique market. After you bought it, I went to all the shops that sold jade and found that there was only one. And you're telling me that you bought it casually? This? Xiao Qian was shocked. He didn't expect this old man to know about spiritual jade. Moreover, he knew how to distinguish spiritual jade. This was very rare among warriors. Most warriors did not even know what a spiritual jade was, and what was the difference between it and ordinary jade. Otherwise, Li Shanying and Qing Mingqiang would not have been able to take out the spiritual jade so easily. It doesn't matter if you don't say it. You can't hide it even if you want to. The old man said, I will force you to say it. If you don't, I will send you back to the Warriors Guild. If you tell me, I can guarantee your safety when you leave Lan City. Jing Jiba and the others won't make things difficult for you. All right. Xiao Qin had no choice but to say, I am a devil cultivator. I found that this kind of jade is good for my cultivation, so I collected it everywhere. The old man was slightly surprised. He then frowned and said, Just for cultivation? As far as I know, although this thing is good for cultivation, it's very weak. Yes, but I want to improve my strength. Even if it's just a little useful, I will collect it. Xiao Qin said. Is that so? The old man suddenly moved. Without warning, he attacked Xiao Qin. He casually threw the jade pendant at Xiao Qin. Then, while Xiao Qin subconsciously stretched out his hand to catch the jade pendant, he directly punched at Xiao Qin's face. Xiao Qin was shocked and quickly took 2 steps back. A huge aura hit him in the face. Xiao Qin's heart trembled. This was an expert, a top expert. Xiao Qin actually couldn't see through his strength. In the past, even if it was a martial artist with a higher level than him, Xiao Qin could still see through their strength. But this time, Xiao Qin only felt that this person was very strong, even stronger than old man Shishan, who had perfected the peak of stage 10 inner force. Xiao Qin didn't dare to be negligent. He secretly circulated the mantra but did not attack. Instead, he kept dodging because he didn't have a chance to attack. The old man's speed was too fast. Xiao Qin was overwhelmed. Often, just as Xiao Qin dodged the previous move, the next move would follow. Back and forth like this, the old man had already used more than 10 moves. Huh? Not bad? The old man's eyes narrowed. He couldn't help but exclaim. He felt that there must be a secret in this spiritual jade. At this moment he had roughly judged Xiao Qian's strength. Although Xiao Qin didn't attack and he couldn't get an accurate level, Xiao Qin should be around the peak of stage 9 to stage 10 inner force devil cultivator. At such a young age he mingled with Tanjita and the others. Moreover, he was Xin Jingshuan's boyfriend. He was probably not very old. He should be around 20 years old. It was a little unbelievable that he could have such a cultivation at this age. Not to mention the true martial arts families, even those sects were rare. Therefore he felt that all of this should be the credit of the spiritual jade. Otherwise, why did Xiao Qin only buy the spiritual jade? And he spent so much money on it? Xiao Qin kept dodging and retreating. Finally, when he retreated to a corner, he had nowhere to retreat. He had no choice but to set up an illusion to make the old man think that he had escaped and Xiao Qin hadn't. However, this illusion seemed to have no effect on the old man. After a short pause, the old man still slammed his palm towards Xiao Qian's chest. Boom! Xiao Qin was slammed against the wall. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, for some unknown reason, the old man didn't use his full strength. After the successful blow, he didn't continue attacking. Instead, he retreated to the side and sat down. He said calmly, I'll give you some time to adjust your breathing. Think about it carefully. Do you want to tell me the truth? Ah. Xiao Qin was stunned. He immediately understood. This old man was obviously giving him a show of strength. He was warning him that if he didn't tell the truth, he would be ruthless. Although the old man showed mercy, Xiao Qin still felt very uncomfortable. He had tried his best and used his body's speed to the limit. However, in the end he still couldn't escape the last blow. Even the illusion was useless. Also, don't even think about using illusions. This old man is also a devil cultivator. Although this old man has to admit that your illusions are very clever and almost made this old man see wrongly, this old man didn't feel your aura of escape. Although you disappeared, this old man felt that you haven't left. Just as I expected. The old man warned, now that I have locked on to your aura, you better think carefully before you speak. Xiaochen took a deep breath and seized the time to heal his injuries. However, the old man didn't know what kind of strength he used. When the demonic energy entered Xiaochen's body, it was like maggots in a tarsal bone. It was running amok in Xiaochen's body. This was different from the other demonic energy. This demonic energy didn't seem to be suppressed. It was like the cold energy in his body. It made Xiaochen feel very uncomfortable. It was like thousands of ants gnawing on his bones, causing trouble in his meridians. Looking at Xiaochen's somewhat uncomfortable expression, the old man said calmly, "Oh right, I forgot to tell you. You have been hit by this old man's unique skill. If this old man doesn't help you resolve it, you will soon die from the pain of itching in your meridians. So, whether you want to say it or not, think carefully." After saying that, the old man no longer paid attention to Xiaochen. He closed his eyes as if he was taking a nap. The chaotic demonic energy made Xiaochen's healing speed a lot slower. This was because Xiaochen had to use a portion of his essence to suppress the demonic energy. Only the remaining half of his essence could be used to heal. Fortunately, Xiaochen's current strength level had increased. His healing speed was also much faster than before. Otherwise, who knew how slow it would be? After thinking about it, Xiaochen decisively held the spirit jade in his hand and began to absorb and dissolve it. Even if he was discovered by the old man, Xiaochen had no choice but to do so. The secret of the spiritual jade was related to the fact that he was a cultivator. He had no way of explaining it, so he could only tell the truth. However, Xiaochen could not reveal it. Chapter 464. Then he had to recover from his injuries as soon as possible and refine the demon qi in his body. Only then would he have a chance to escape from the old man's clutches. But after he escaped, he would probably be wanted by the Lan City Warriors Guild again. What a headache. As time passed, the old man seemed to be very patient. He did not care about the time Xiaochen needed to recover. It seemed that this was the only way to give Xiaochen psychological pressure and force Xiaochen to tell the truth. However, this gave Xiaochen time to recover. The old man probably did not expect Xiaochen's self-healing ability to be so strong. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would only be able to regulate their breathing and suppress their injuries. It was absolutely impossible for them to fully recover. It was probably because of this that the old man ignored Xiaochen. Finally, Xiaochen's internal injuries were completely healed. However, he did not stop and continued to dissolve the demon qi in his body. The demon qi that the old man had injected into his body was thick and violent. It was even more ferocious than Leng Youxiang's. However, once it was dissolved and turned into yuan qi, the increase in Xiaochen's strength was very significant. With the help of the spiritual jade, Xiaochen felt that his strength was constantly increasing. He had a faint feeling that he was about to break through the barrier. But how was this possible? A few days ago, Xiaochen had just broken through the barrier of the peak of the 7th level of the qi refining stage and stepped into the 8th level. Even though he was now at the peak of the 8th level, he still did not dare to believe that he could immediately enter the 9th level. However, the truth was right in front of him. Xiaochen felt that after the demonic aura was dissolved, the primordial qi was colliding with his barrier again and again with the help of the spirit jade. The originally indestructible barrier actually had a tiny crack. Seeing this, Xiaochen was both surprised and happy. If he could successfully break through this time, he would definitely have the strength to fight against this old man. Thinking of this, Xiaochen could not help but speed up the circulation of the mantra, speeding up the transformation of the demon qi. The transformation of demonic energy was a very painful process. The faster the process, the more painful it was. The demonic energy was not absorbed by the meridians. Instead, it was piled up together. This was a very dangerous and uncomfortable situation. However, this was exactly the situation that Xiaochen wanted. The little bits of vital qi accumulated into a mickle, continuously battering against the barrier, one after another. Boom! Finally, after the spiritual jade shattered into powder, Xiaochen successfully broke through the barrier and advanced to the 9th level of the refinement stage. Phew! Xiaochen heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the old man not far away. Not bad, you do have some skills. The old man saw that Xiaochen raised his head and looked at him. At this moment, he opened his eyes as if he could see through Xiaochen's movements at any time. He said slowly, "Being able to suppress my demon qi in such a short period of time, you really do have some skills." Of course, the old man only thought that Xiaochen suppressed the demon qi. He would not believe that Xiaoqin could refine the demon qi and use it for his own use. If he could not do it, how could Xiaoqin do it? We have no enmity between us, and I have already told you what you asked me. This spiritual jade is really for my cultivation, but you don't believe me. Xiaoqin said with a bitter smile. You better think carefully before you speak. Your life is in my hands now. I can kill you at any time. The old man's face was a little ugly. He did not expect that Xiaoqin would dare to not tell the truth at this time. I'm very clear about this. Xiaoqin nodded and said, but I really did not lie to you. Good, in that case I will fulfill your wish. A sharp glint flashed in the old man's eyes as he stared at Xiaoqin and suddenly made his move. Xiaoqin did not dodge at this moment. He faced the blade head-on and rushed towards the old man. He secretly circulated the mantra in his heart and activated the 10th form of the dark flame palm that he had never used before. The old man only wanted to teach Xiaoqin a lesson, so he did not use his full strength. However, Xiaoqin went all out. In fact, when the old man saw that Xiaoqin actually dared to clash head-on with him, a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Boom, boom, two loud sounds rang out. Xiaoqin was hit by the old man's fist, and the old man was hit by Xiaoqin's palm. In the next moment, both of them flew out at the same time. Xiaoqin spat out a mouthful of blood, but at the same time the old man also spat out blood. He looked at Xiaoqin, who flew in the distance, in horror. He was a little surprised and a little confused. The power of this palm made him feel that Xiaoqin had the strength of a stage 10 inner force master. Of course, this was actually an illusion. Xiaoqin's palm was at most comparable to a stage 10 inner force master. It was not even at the peak, let alone the stage 10 inner force master. After all, Xiaoqin had just broken through and his strength had not stabilized yet. It was purely a stretch for him to activate the 10th form. It was just that he was not prepared, so the power was infinitely amplified. In his opinion, only a master of stage 10 inner force master could beat him up like this. Xiaoqin quickly healed his internal injuries, but the old man obviously could not. He could only suppress his own injuries. The two of them stared at each other at the same time. Their hearts were secretly vigilant, but neither of them moved. Both of them were healing, so it was only a matter of who could move faster. Obviously this person was Xiaoqin. Although the old man was stronger, he might not be able to suppress his injuries as well as Xiaoqin's healing. Xiaoqin stood up and walked toward the old man step by step. The old man's eyes were filled with incomparable fear. He had never thought that a half-step martial master like him would be beaten by a martial artist. How is this possible? How are you fine? You took 2 of my attacks in a row. How is it possible that you are completely fine? The old man looked at Xiaoqin in disbelief. Judging from his state, he was not injured at all. Old man, I already said that we have no enmity between us. I told you everything you asked, but why don't you believe me? Xiaoqin was just threatening him. He did not really want to take this opportunity to kill the old man. Otherwise, the hatred would be too inexplicable. He did not even know who the other party was. Are you really using it for cultivation? The old man asked. Yes, I was at the peak of stage 9 internal force. You can see that, right? Xiaoqin asked. That's right. The old man nodded. This was the truth. He was still wondering how Xiaoqin broke through in the blink of an eye. That's why I almost broke through. Then, I just used the spiritual jade that I just bought to complete the breakthrough. Now, I'm at stage 10 internal force. Xiaoqin said, although this thing is expensive and the effect is slow, why wouldn't I buy it when others are paying for it? Moreover, I can't find other better materials for cultivation, so I can only use this. As Xiaoqin spoke, he reached into his pocket and took out the pile of broken jade powder. He sprinkled it in front of the old man. Although there was no energy in it, there were some parts that were not completely broken. It could still be vaguely seen that this was the spiritual jade from before. Looking at the broken jade in front of him, the old man had no choice but to believe what Xiaoqin said. He was a little speechless. Is that really the case? Then you really have money to burn. With this money you can buy a lot of other cultivation resources. In his opinion, Xiaoqin was only a step away from breaking through. That was why he used the spiritual jade to help him break through. Because he had also used spiritual jade before, the effect was very weak. It was basically negligible. I already said that others are paying for it. Xiaoqin shrugged. And I'm used to it. You have any? No, you're not weak. How about we cooperate? If you agree, you can get a lot of spiritual jade. The old man suddenly spoke. Even his attitude towards Xiaoqin had changed from the haughty attitude from before to a more equal one. Stage 10 internal force was equivalent to the great circle of stage 10 internal force. It was enough to hurt a half-step martial master like him. An expert of this level was similar to him. Although he was a half-step martial master, he had not become a martial master. It could only be said that he had touched the threshold and was slightly stronger than an ordinary great circle of stage 10 internal force. Cooperate? What kind of cooperation? Xiaoqun was slightly stunned. The old man did not continue. Instead he looked at White Fox carefully. After a while he suddenly said, White Fox, I'm Clay. Cough, cough, cough. Xiaoqun almost spat when he heard that. Clayton? Wasn't that the one who issued the mission to look for him to explore the ancient ruins? Why was he here? Clayton was also a little embarrassed. He did not expect the person in front of him to be White Fox. He had felt that White Fox's name was very familiar, but he did not think too much about it. After all, White Fox could not be from Lan City. It was from Songning. Moreover, he did not remember the name White Fox very clearly. He had only added him as a friend on the Warrior Guild's app. He was a little puzzled that White Fox wanted so many spiritual jade, but it was not convenient to ask on the app. He had used spiritual jade before, but the effect was not very good. After he came out of seclusion, he had planned to buy a piece of spiritual jade at the antique market to see what was so special about it. However, when he went in, he found one. When he asked about the price, it was too expensive. He felt that it was not worth it, so he decided to go to another shop. In the end, he saw Xiaoqun and Tanjita coming in and buying the spiritual jade. He followed them out curiously and saw what had happened. He felt that there was something strange about Xiaoqun, so he brought him here to ask. He did not expect this person to be the White Fox who wanted to explore the ancient ruins with them. No wonder he was wearing a fox mask. You want the spirit jades from the primordial relic for cultivation? Clayton asked. Yes, what else can I use it for? It's not like I can eat it, Xiaoqun said. I just feel that it's safer to use spiritual jade for cultivation. Many a little makes a mickle. Alright, you have the money. Do whatever you want. Clayton was speechless, but he did not ask further. After all, White Fox's strength was similar to his. If he asked too much and attacked him, he would be in trouble. He had not recovered from his injuries yet. Chapter 465. I don't have money. Others bought them for me. Xiaoqun said, Moreover, I don't have to spend money to explore the ancient ruins. I don't want to spend money. I'm convinced. Clayton sighed. We didn't get to know each other until we fought. Don't mind it too much. After all, that's how the martial arts world is. I know, but you promised me before and gave me all the spiritual jades. Isn't it inappropriate to invite others to cooperate with you? Xiaoqun was referring to the fact that Clayton had invited him to work together again without knowing that he was the person from before. Clayton was a little embarrassed. He looked at Xiaoqun and smiled bitterly. You should understand that I've never met you before and don't know your strength. Now that I have a better partner, I'm naturally tempted, but I won't do it again in the future. If it was someone else, Clayton would not have explained so much. How high was he? He was a half-step martial master. Although he had not officially stepped into the martial master level, he was not far from it. Now Xiaoqun was about the same level as him. It was probably only a matter of time before Xiaoqun stepped into the martial master level. He was already at stage 10 inner force at such a young age. His future must be limitless. I understand. Xiaoqun nodded. Then we'll meet again? I should go back now. Alright, keep in touch. Clayton nodded. Xiaoqun did not say much and left the alley in a flash. However, once he came out, he was at a loss. Tanjita had already left. He did not even have a car. He did not know where the Shin family's mansion was. Previously, when he got off the highway, he drove there under Shin Jingshuan's directions. But if he were to go back from here, he would not be able to go back. When he came here, he wanted to pretend to be polite to Tanjita, so he did not remember the way. He had no choice but to turn around and go back. Clayton had not left yet. He was sitting cross-legged while suppressing his injuries. When he saw Xiaoqun return, he was a little puzzled. Young friend, why are you back? Let me ask you something. You should be the local tyrant of Lan City, right? Tanjita and the others are afraid of you. Obviously they know you. You should also know where the Shin family is, right? Xiaoqun asked. Yes. The old man nodded. Then tell me the approximate location. I'll take a taxi back. Seeing that you're injured, I won't let you lead the way, said Xiaoqun. Take a taxi and tell him that even taxi drivers know about the Shin family's manor in the suburbs. The old man was a little speechless as he said, not only do people live in the Shin family's manor, It's also a green produce sales company that wholesales some high-end grains, fruits, and vegetables. So that's how it is. Then I'm leaving. Thank you, Xiaoqin said. No wonder when he went to the Shin family he felt that the exterior looked like a company. It turned out that it was really a company. After stopping a taxi, Xiaoqin found out the address of the Shin family's manor. Soon he returned to the Shin family. Tanjita was still there. When he saw Xiaoqin return, he gritted his teeth in anger. However, there was nothing he could do. He put on a fake smile and greeted him. White Fox, you're back? Yes, I'm back. Are you disappointed? Xiaoqin squinted his eyes and looked at Tanjita with a faint smile. How could I? Tanjita was a little embarrassed. White Fox, a straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. I won't give up. Up to you. Xiaoqin shook his head. By the way, you and that old man just now, what's your relationship? Tanjita asked tentatively. What? Xiaoqin was slightly moved. Do you know him? Of course I'm asking you, Tanjita said. Oh, just a good friend, Xiaoqin said lightly. Impossible. Tanjita immediately denied. Then he shook his head and said, forget it. You don't have to pretend since you don't know each other. The Zheng and Ma families have suffered such a big loss this time. They won't give up easily. I advise you to leave Lan City as soon as possible. Otherwise, the consequences will be hard to predict. Thank you for the reminder, Xiaoqin said. All right, I don't have time to waste with you. I'm going back to my room to rest. You. Tanjita clenched his fists. He hesitated for a moment and quickly walked to Xin Jingxuan's room. He had to take some measures. If one move didn't work, he still had a backup plan. Xiaoqin returned to his room. After thinking for a while, he decided to inform Xin Jingxian. Otherwise, she would be worried about him. However, when he knocked on the door, Xiaoqin was surprised to find that Xin Jingxian and her family were not there. Perhaps they went to see old Master Xin? Xiaoqin could only go back to his room to consolidate his strength. He used White Fox's phone number to send a message to Xin Jingxian, telling her that he had returned safely. In Xin Jingxuan's room in the Sihiyuan, Tan Muwei was also sitting on the sofa. She looked at Tanjita who was chattering away. When he finally finished, she said, I didn't expect this White Fox to be a martial artist above stage 8 inner force. He's quite capable. What do you think, Jingquan? What can we do? Actually, there is a way. It's just that the old man hasn't closed his eyes yet. I can't enforce the authority of the Shin family's master. Xin Jingquan said. Why isn't this old thing dead yet? Didn't my dad drug him? Tanjita said gloomily. Jita, don't talk nonsense. Tan Muwei immediately stopped him. However, Tanjita didn't care. Anyway, no one here can hear it. It doesn't matter. Oh, about your second grandpa? Tan Muwei looked at Xin Jingquan and asked. Well, my second grandpa doesn't care much about the Shin family. I told him, but he didn't say that he would support me, nor did he say that he wouldn't support me. Xin Jingquan was a little helpless. It seems that the Shin family's affairs have nothing to do with him. Oh, today Tanjita suddenly thought of something. He told Xin Jingquan about the tense scene at the entrance of the antique market and how Xiaoqin was taken away by the old man. Oh, is that true? Xin Jingquan couldn't help but frown after hearing it. Yes. Tanjita nodded. Jing Qinghu and Ma Jinhan were there and their father. What's their relationship? Xin Jingquan thought for a moment and asked. I don't think so. I don't seem to know the White Fox. I don't even know its name, Tanjita said. That's good. But we really can't delay this matter. The White Fox is the one who is hindering you. But if you can do something that will convince the Shin family, I will have a reason to betroth Xin Jingxian to you. Xin Jingquan said, now let's split up. Invite Jing Jiba and Ma Jinhan here. I will discuss with them how to deal with the White Fox. As for you, find a way to invite Medicine Master Ji. As long as you contribute to the Shin family, I will forcefully betroth Xin Jingxian to you during the family meeting. No one can say anything. Because of your grandfather's affairs, the Shin family will hold a family meeting soon. Okay, I understand. I will call them now and then contact Medicine Master Ji. Tanjita nodded and turned around to handle the matter. And at this moment, Xin Jingshuan's family was really in Xin Shanha's room. Xin Jinghao finally came to Xin Shanha's room after being summoned by Xin Shanha. This was the first time he saw Xin Shanha after returning home. Xin Jinghao was not allowed to enter before. Father. Although Xin Jinghao was a bit selfish, he was much kinder than Xin Jingquan and the others. At least he would not kill Xin Shanha. Jinghao, you're here. Xin Shanha nodded to him. Jingmao Jingxian, you're here too. Sit. Grandpa, how do you feel? Shin Jingxian asked worriedly. Didn't you find a medicine master for Grandpa? He might think of a way. You don't have to worry too much. Shin Shanhe smiled. It was obvious that he had already accepted it. Dad, your illness. Shin Jinghao wanted to say something but stopped. He wanted to tell the truth, but he was afraid that his father would think that he was slandering them. So he didn't know whether he should say it or not. His father's impression of him was not very good. If he said it, would his father believe it? Looking at Shin Jinghao, who had something to say but did not know how to start, Shin Shanhe smiled. I know what you want to say. My friend the white fox should have told you. That's right, I was poisoned, but it's hard to say who poisoned me. Dad, you know? Who else could it be? It must be big brother and second brother. Shin Jinghao said angrily. Jinghao, don't talk nonsense without evidence. Mind your own business. This time I called you here to let you look at the situation. If it doesn't work, take Jingxian and Jingmao away from the Shin family. This is a good thing for you. Otherwise, if you stay here and get ostracized, it may cause more trouble. Shin Shanhe said, since I'm sick, my control over the Shin family has obviously declined. They don't listen to me anymore? Shin Jinghao was a little silent. Shin Shanhe's words were very clear. Now that Shin Jingquan was in power, even he couldn't give orders. In other words, the competition for the position of the third-generation young master had become impossible. Well, I'm tired. You go back. I've said what I need to say. If you stay here for a long time, Jingquan and the others will be suspicious. Shin Shanhe sighed and waved his hand. He was a little disheartened. Shin Jinghao nodded and stood up silently. He said, Dad, then you have a good rest. I'll leave first. With that, he left the room with Shin Jingxian and Shin Jingmao. In this situation, he really didn't know what to say. On the way back, Shin Jingmao couldn't help but say, Dad, actually, Brother White Fox should have a way. You don't have to worry too much. At worst, I won't compete for the position of young master. We'll go back to Songning and establish our own family. That's the only way. I'm just a little unwilling. After so many years of hard work, it was destroyed by these crazy people. Shin Jinghao returned to the villa and sat there, feeling a little depressed. Chapter 466. Shin Jingxian and Shin Jingxian also went back to rest. Shin Jingxian received a message from Xiao Qin, but it was not appropriate for her to look for him. It was a sensitive time now and she was in the Shin family, so her hands and feet were tied. In the evening, Xiao Qin started to brew the medicinal liquid. Although the demonic stump fruit had to be used within 24 hours, the demonic stump fruit that had already been used for brewing medicine could last longer. Of course, this was only limited to soaking it with other medicinal herbs. If it was taken out, it would be useless. After taking the medicinal liquid, Xiao Qin began to consolidate his strength as a level 9 Qi refinement stage cultivator. As he was training, he was startled by the voice of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. I got it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said loudly. This scared Xiao Qin out of his wits. He was concentrating on training when he was so scared that he jumped 3 feet high and almost fell on the ground. I say, God, people can scare people to death. Don't be like this, okay? Didn't I think of a way to cure that old man Shin? If you don't want to listen, then forget about it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said with a sneaky smile. He didn't feel sorry for scaring Xiao Qin. I'll listen. Xiao Qin quickly said. Actually, there is a way to cure him. If it was before, I wouldn't be sure. But now, you are a level 9 Qi refinement stage cultivator, and your primordial Qi is purer. It should not be a problem for you to cure the 2 poisons of Old Man Shin in one go. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said. Before, your strength was too low. I was afraid that you could only cure one of them or 1.5. Without the balance of the other poison, that old man would die in a matter of minutes. In other words, it is possible now? Xiao Qin was surprised and asked. If Old Man Shin could be cured, then the problem of the Shin family could be solved. You can, but you can't do it yourself. Elder Heaven Ancestor said, you need help. Anyone? Xiao Qin asked. Of course not. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said, there must be 2 pharmacists who are well versed in medicine and the meridians of the human body. They will assist you and help you suppress the 2 poisons. Don't release them all at once, release them gradually so that you can neutralize them. Otherwise, if you release them all at once and there is no one to suppress them, it will cause an imbalance between the 2 poisons. Old Man Shin's life will be in danger. So troublesome? Xiao Qin roughly understood the theory behind this and could not help but fall into deep thought. Among the apothecaries he knew, Other than Apothecary Sun and Apothecary Tan, the only ones left were Apothecary Lu and Apothecary Qin. Apothecary Lu was probably the only one he had a good relationship with and whom he could invite. With these thoughts in mind, Xiaoqin dialed Hongzhu's number without any hesitation. "Why are you always looking for me at night? Don't you sleep?" Hongzhu picked up the phone and said with a sleepy tone. "You're sleeping so early?" Xiaoqin asked. "No, I'm taking a nap," Hongzhu said. Xiaoqin was speechless. "Alright, do me a favor. Do you have Medicine Master Lu's number? Give it to me, I have something to talk to him about." "I do." "What? You're looking for him and not me?" Hongzhu snorted. "I thought you were looking for me. Little brother Xiaoqin, can't you take the initiative to talk to me alone for once? You've hurt me. If you continue like this, I'll leave and you won't be able to see me for the rest of your life. Then, I'll look for you too. Help me investigate a person called Rich Ma." Xiaoqin said, "This person is the second in command of Lan City's Warriors Market. As his name suggests, he's very rich, but I don't know where his money comes from." "Oh, you've caused me trouble just by guessing," Hongzhu complained. "This seems to be your responsibility, right? The Hong Chamber of Commerce belongs to your family. If there's a parasite, it'll be your loss. You're not my wife, so why should I worry?" Xiaoqin said. "Then should I marry you?" Hongzhu asked. "Forget it, I don't dare to," Xiaoqin said. "Look at how scared you are." Hongzhu snorted and hung up the phone. "Wait, Medicine Master Lu's number?" Xiaoqin didn't know how he had offended Hongzhu. However, when Xiaoqin was about to call back, his cell phone received a message from Hongzhu. It was Medicine Master Lu's number. Xiaoqin couldn't help but smile and dialed Medicine Master Lu's number. "Xiaoqin." Medicine Master Lu picked up the phone and asked directly. "Huh? Medicine Master Lu, you have my number?" Xiaoqin was a little surprised. "Yes, little Hongzhu told me," Medicine Master Lu said. "What's the matter? Is there something you need from me?" "There's indeed something I'd like to trouble you with. It's like this." Xiaoqin told Medicine Master Lu what he needed help with and then said, "Medicine Master Lu, can you help me find another Medicine Master to help me with you?" "No problem." Medicine Master Lu was a little shocked when he heard about the illness Xiaoqin had mentioned. 2 deadly poisons had been sealed in the damaged meridians by a freak combination of factors, and they had restrained each other without acting up. This was really unheard of. Moreover, even he couldn't think of a solution to such a difficult problem. How could Xiaoqin solve it? Medicine Master Lu thought to himself that his guess was right. Xiaoqin's attainments in pharmacology were likely to have surpassed his. Thinking of this, he immediately agreed. "Are you at the Shen family in Lan City? Okay, I'll go there as soon as possible. Then I'll have to trouble you, Medicine Master Lu?" Xiaoqin was a little surprised. He didn't expect Lu Fangzhen to agree so readily. After hanging up the phone, Xiaoqin breathed a sigh of relief. He said to the Elder Heaven Ancestor, "Elder Heaven Ancestor, now that I'm at the 9th level of the Qi refinement stage, I should have some killer moves, right? Do I have any cool moves that are more powerful than those martial artists?" "Yes, but it's just an upgrade of the previous ability," the Elder Heaven Ancestor said. "It's still the same as before." Xiaoqin was a little disappointed. It seemed that the last few levels of the Qi refinement stage didn't add new abilities, but only expanded and upgraded the previous abilities. "Well, it's still the same as before. If you don't want to know, I won't tell you," the Elder Heaven Ancestor said. "But I don't know how to read it myself." Xiaoqin glanced at some of the information that the Elder Heaven Ancestor sent him before. It turned out that the ability of the 9th level of the Qi refinement stage was still the transformation of primordial Qi. However, it could transform some unconventional energy, which was different from the previous conventional energy transformation. "It seems that there's nothing new?" Xiaoqin said. "I won't explain, of course there's nothing new, but if you don't want me to explain, then forget it," the Elder Heaven Ancestor said. "Then, please explain." Xiaoqin had to beg for mercy. "Beg me," the Elder Heaven Ancestor said proudly. "Master, please teach me," Xiaoqin said gloomily. "Hee, when you fight with others, you can use some simple moves of the cultivators such as the fireball technique, the water ball technique, the ice ball technique, the earth ball technique," the Elder Heaven Ancestor explained. "But, it doesn't seem to be useful, does it?" Xiaoqin was surprised. In this case, the fireball technique seemed to be a bit useful, but for those martial artists, what could a fireball do? Xiaoqin remembered that demonic cultivators seemed to be able to use a similar move. At most, it was used to scare people. Even if it landed on their bodies, it would only burn a hole in their clothes. After all, these martial artists had strong physiques. Being burned by the fireball was nothing to them. They wouldn't even be scalded. It seemed like he already knew what Xiao Chen was thinking. In fact, the Elder Heaven Ancestor really knew. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said with a smile, "What you said are the conventional flames. Of course, the effect is not great, but I am talking about the unconventional flame transformation." Unconventional? Xiao Chen was a bit interested. Is it very powerful? Of course. The Elder Heaven Ancestor deliberately kept him in suspense. Xiao Chen, have you heard of the Samadhi True Fire? I have. Could it be? Xiao Chen was shocked. I can condense the Samadhi True Fire? I am just giving an example. In the cultivation world, the fireball you condense is not any weaker than the Samadhi True Fire. Some of the weaker martial artists, you only need to throw a true fireball technique at them, and they will be turned into ashes. The Elder Heaven Ancestor explained. That bad asterisks. Xiao Chen was shocked. You have not seen those with great supernatural powers, but the tricks of the Qi refining stage are nothing. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said, at this stage, if you use the fireball technique properly, at most, you can seriously injure that old man called Clayton. Then why didn't you say so earlier? I wouldn't have fought him. Xiao Chen was a bit depressed. You always say that I am a busybody, so you have your own ideas. You can't die, so I am too lazy to say anything, the Elder Heaven Ancestor snorted. Xiao Chen knew that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was talking about the incident with Xin Jingxian, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Elder Heaven Ancestor, next time you are a busybody, I will not talk about you anymore. Okay, it depends on my mood. The Elder Heaven Ancestor was very proud, finally finding the feeling of being a master. After a quiet night, after Xiao Chen consolidated his strength, he wanted to test the true fireball technique, but this was someone else's territory, so it would not be good to set the house on fire, so Xiao Chen held back. The next morning, someone knocked on Xiao Chen's door. He walked out and saw that it was a disciple of the Shin family, and he hurriedly informed him, White Fox, the Shin family is holding a family meeting. Although you are a guest, we hope that you can participate. Family meeting? Xiao Chen was slightly taken aback. Although he was very curious as to why the Shin clan was holding a clan meeting at this time and who was the one who organized it, it was exactly what he wanted to attend. He nodded and said, all right, tell me where it is and when should I go? In a while you can go with Mr. Jianghu, young Master Jingmao, and Miss Jingxian, the disciple said. Okay, I understand. Xiao Chen nodded, went back to wash up, and quickly walked to Xin Jingshuan's villa. At this moment, Xin Jingxian had obviously also received the notice from the Shin family disciple. When she saw Xiao Chen coming, she nodded and said, White Fox, you are here, let's go together. Xin Jianghu was frowning as if he had guessed something and was pacing back and forth in the room. Chapter 467. White Fox, you're here. Xin Jianghu stopped in his tracks when he saw Xiao Chen. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said anxiously, I think Xin Jingquan will find a way to take control of the family today. Uncle Shen, don't worry too much. I'll act according to the circumstances. I won't let you guys suffer any losses. Xiao Chen comforted him. Actually, Xiao Chen didn't expect Xin Jingquan to be so fast. Could it be that they discovered something? In fact, it was because of this that Xin Jingquan was alerted by the meeting between Xiao Chen and Clayden yesterday. Especially when he knew that Xiao Chen's strength was probably above stage 8 inner force, it put a lot of pressure on Xin Jingquan. Therefore, he had no choice but to call a family meeting to confirm his position. Xiao Chen followed behind Xin Jianghu and held Xin Jingshuan's hand. Goddess Shen was a little nervous, but Xiao Chen gave her a strange sense of security. Xin Jingxian never dreamed that one day she would appear in the Shin family's courtyard holding Xiao Chen's hand. Sometimes life was really strange. She didn't like Xiao Chen at all, but now she loved him very much. Everyone walked into the Shin family's meeting hall. It was a huge building with a very spacious hall. There were no round tables like in a conference room, only chairs around. Obviously, everyone was sitting around and there was an empty space in the middle of the main seat. No one knew what it was for. The second son, Xin Jingxin, Su Luhua, and their child, Xin Jingbing, were already sitting in the meeting hall. Behind them were some relatives of the Shin family. However, these people had no say in the Shin family. Anyway, no matter who was in charge, they just wanted to get some benefits. Fighting for the position of the family head was the business of Xin Shanhe's children, and had nothing to do with these relatives. The eldest son, Xin Jingquan, was the last to enter. To everyone's surprise, he was pushing a wheelchair, and the person in the wheelchair was Xin Shanhe. Xin Shanhe closed his eyes and seemed to be asleep. In fact, he was already disheartened and was waiting to be manipulated by Xin Jingquan. After all, his words were useless in the Xin family. He was a dying man and no one would listen to him. He pushed Xin Shanhe to the empty space in front of the main seat. It turned out that this was where the wheelchair was. No wonder it was empty. Xiao Qin sat at the side and watched everything that was happening coldly. He wanted to see what this Xin Jingquan was going to do. Cough cough. Well, since everyone from the Xin family is here, let's get ready for the meeting. Xin Jingquan stood next to Xin Shanhe, acting like the host of the meeting. Xin Jingquan stood next to Xin Shanhe, looking like the host of the meeting. Xin Jingxin looked at Xin Jingquan with anger in his eyes. Xin Jingxuan's actions had disrupted his plan. His plan was not small. He was going to serve the old man and make him write a will or something. Although Xin Jingquan might not be useful, he could use it to wave the flag. At the very least, he could split the Xin family. But now, he had not done anything and Xin Jingquan was ready to force him to abdicate. He knew very well what Xin Jingquan wanted to do. At this time he held a family meeting and pushed Xin Shanhe out. That was to confirm his identity as the heir of the Xin family and make it an established fact. However, he could not oppose it. After all, Xin Jingquan was the eldest son. When Xin Shanhe was seriously ill, it was normal for him to exercise the responsibility of the family head. Now, I would like to introduce a few guests here to witness this family meeting. Now, let's welcome President Gu of the Warrior Guild, Zheng Zhiba. Following Xin Jingxuan's words, Zheng Zhiba walked in, waved to everyone and sat next to Xin Shanhe. Warrior Market's deputy shopkeeper, Mr. Ma Yuqian. Xin Jingquan continued to introduce. Ma Yuqian walked in and sat next to Xin Shanhe with a smile. Warrior Market's chief pharmacist, Tan Muyo. As Xin Jingquan spoke, Tan Muyo also walked in. However, although he was the leader of the three, he was still one level lower than the other two, so he sat next to Ma Yuqian. Next, there is another mysterious guest. That is pharmacist Tan's son, Tan Jida. He was invited by my father. He is a top pharmacist, the chief pharmacist of the Warrior Market headquarters, Ji Yuliang. With a wave of Xin Jingxuan's hand, Tan Jida walked into the conference hall with a hale and hearty old man. The first three people were within everyone's expectations. After all, the three of them had a good relationship with Xin Jingquan. However, Medicine Master Ji was a little surprising. Was he really invited? To treat Xin Shanhe? What if he was cured? Wouldn't Xin Jingquan have no chance? Xin Jingxin was also a little puzzled. He believed that Xin Jingquan and Tan Muyo were in cahoots, but it was a little unrealistic to say that Pharmacist Ji was here to help. After all, Pharmacist Ji was a top pharmacist. There was no need to bring any bad stain on his reputation because of the Xin family. However, no matter what, Xin Jingxuan's actions made those who did not know the truth look at him in a new light. They all praised him. After all, everyone felt that he did not want to be promoted, but to treat Grandpa Xin's illness. Pharmacist Ji's time is limited, so before the family meeting, I will take up some of everyone's time to let Pharmacist Ji treat my father. Does anyone have any objections? Xin Jingquan said. Naturally, no one had any objections. After all, old Master Xin was the master of the Xin family. Who would have any objections? Only a few children of the Xin family were fighting fiercely. Other than them, the others had no chance at all. Therefore, whether Xin Shanhe was well or not had little to do with them. However, on the surface they had to applaud. All right, Pharmacist Ji, please treat my father. Seeing that no one objected, Xin Jingquan made an inviting gesture. It turned out that the other seat next to Xin Shanhe was reserved for Pharmacist Ji. Pharmacist Ji nodded and walked over. He grasped the pulse on Xin Shanhe's wrist and examined it carefully. Xin Shanhe did not move. He did not even open his eyes. He was at Pharmacist Ji's mercy. Actually, Pharmacist Ji did not want to come today. He did not want to get involved in the internal strife of the Jianghu family. However, since Tan Muyo had invited him, he had to come. They were all colleagues and Tan Muyo's consultation fee was not low, so Pharmacist Ji still came. But after the examination, Pharmacist Ji felt that something was wrong. Xin Shanhe's body had been poisoned by two kinds of poison? Tan Muyo could not examine it, but Pharmacist Ji could. He also discovered that the poison had accumulated in the injured area. If he was not careful, he would die from the poison. This kind of situation was simply incurable. Pharmacist Ji knew that this trip was probably in vain. Fortunately, the consultation fee was paid first. Whether or not Xin Shanhe was cured, he would still be paid for this trip. However, Shin Shanha's situation made it impossible for him to tell the truth. Shin Shanha was poisoned, and it was two kinds of poison at that. If he said it, it would definitely cause an uproar. Pharmacist Ji could only sigh and shake his head. No, there's no other way. I can't treat his problem either. Forgive me for my limited ability, but I can only give up. With that, Pharmacist Ji got up and apologized to everyone. Then he sat down again. Sigh. It seems like there's really no other way. Shin Jingxuan's face was full of grief. Everyone knows Pharmacist Ji's ability. Since Pharmacist Ji has said so. Sigh, for the development of the Shin family, we can only look forward. So, I think father is here, but with his condition he will definitely not be able to handle the affairs of the Shin family. Father, for the development of the Shin family, please appoint a successor to the Shin family. Shin Jingxin's eyes were about to burst into flames. So this was what they were waiting for. Even Pharmacist Ji couldn't treat him. This also showed everyone that Shin Shanha was completely hopeless. At this time, Shin Jingxuan's words, which seemed to be for the sake of the Shin family, were not the slightest bit excessive. Instead, it would gain everyone's support. Sure enough, the relatives of the Shin family all nodded. They also understood what kind of person Pharmacist Ji was. If he said it was hopeless, then it was hopeless. If the Shin family didn't choose a person to take charge, who would they benefit from in the future? Shin Shanha slowly opened his eyes and looked at Shin Jingquan listlessly. He didn't know what to say. This was forcing him to abdicate. In this situation, if he still didn't make a decision, then everyone present would probably think that he was obsessed with power and refused to let go. He didn't care about the development and future of the Shin family. He was about to die. Why didn't he hurry up and appoint a successor? What was he waiting for? Moreover, with the lineup that Shin Jingquan had found, it seemed that he was the most filial. He was also the eldest son. If he let someone else be the head of the family, it would be a little biased. It wouldn't be justifiable. Seeing that Zheng Jiba, Ma Yuqian, and Tan Muyo were all sitting here, it was obvious that they were there to hold the fort for him. If he let someone else take over, it would be hard to say if there would be trouble. Thinking of this, Shin Shanha was disheartened. Forget it, if you want it, then take it. He didn't want to see the Shin family fall into internal strife. Passing the position to the eldest son of the Shin family, Shin Jingquan, was the best outcome. However, just as Shin Shanha was about to speak, he was interrupted by an indifferent voice. The one who spoke was Xiao Qin. Who said that Pharmacist Ji can't treat anyone else just because he said so? Xiao Qin knew that if he didn't stand up and waited for Shin Shanha to express his stance, then the matter would become a foregone conclusion. Therefore he had to stand up. However, he didn't know when Pharmacist Lu would arrive, so he had to stop him first. What? Shin Jingxuan's eyebrows twitched. He looked at Xiao Qin with some embarrassment and said angrily, "White Fox, do you mean that your medical skills are better than Pharmacist Ji's?" "That's hard to say." Xiao Qin said lightly, "I didn't say that. You said it yourself. But maybe it's a little better." Chapter 468. Ignorant fool, what did you say? You mean you can cure him? Medicine Master Ji had already lost some face when he couldn't cure Shin Shanha's problem. Now that someone dared to question him, he stood up and shouted at Xiao Qin. He was the chief medicine master of the warrior guild. How honorable was his status. Now that he was being questioned by an unknown junior, it was a great humiliation. White Fox, don't interfere in other people's family matters. According to the warrior guild's rules, as a warrior, you can't interfere in other families' matters. Zheng Jiba spoke. Because of the old man's intervention yesterday, Zheng Jiba couldn't take care of Xiao Qin. He was still unhappy. Now that Xiao Qin had jumped out, how could he let him go? He was worried about not having a chance to deal with him. Really? Xiao Qin smiled. I'm Shin Jingxuan's boyfriend. How is this someone else's family matter? Is Jingxuan's grandfather not my grandfather? I see that you're an outsider sitting there. If I didn't know better, I would think that you're also a grandson of the Shin family. The current Xiao Qin was someone who could even injure Clayden. Xiao Qin was full of confidence and did not put Zheng Jiba in his eyes at all. Not to mention the fact that Zheng Jiba was only the vice president of the warrior guild. Even if he was the president, Xiao Qin would not care too much. White Fox, mind your status. You said that you're only Jingxuan's boyfriend, not her fiancé. Moreover, Jingxuan's marriage will be decided in a family meeting. I'll discuss this matter later. It's hard to say if you can still be Jingxuan's boyfriend. So, please sit down first. Shin Jingquan said coldly. Zheng Jiba was slandered by Xiao Qin as a grandson of the Shen family. Wasn't that the same generation as White Fox? He was furious. He pointed at Xiao Qin and was about to attack. However, at this moment, a disciple of the Shen family ran in hurriedly and said, "Old Master Shen, acting Master Shen, there are two people, they want to come in." "Who?" Shen Jingquan was stunned. "Where are they from? Don't they know that the Shen family is holding a family meeting? No visitors will be received for the time being." "But they are." Before the disciple could finish his words, two people had already entered from behind him. The sudden appearance of these two people caused everyone present to be somewhat stunned. Oh, who were they? However, most people didn't know him, but some did. For example, Xiao Qin, Shen Zhenghao, and the newcomers were none other than Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Qin. The two of them didn't say much and immediately took out their identities as the Hong Chamber of Commerce's chief pharmacist. How would the disciple dare to stop them? After all, they were super important figures. Hence, he hurriedly came to report their arrival, but before he could finish, they had already entered. Shen Zhenghao was excited. At this moment, he clenched his fists. Reversal, the situation had actually reversed. Initially, he did not have much hope, but now that he saw Xiao Qin step forward, followed by Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Qin, he was extremely excited. Perhaps his father's problem could really be cured, and Jing Mao would also have the chance to become the young patriarch. "Who are you? How dare you barge into the Shen family's meeting room? How dare you disrespect the Shen family? Do you want to become enemies with the Shen family?" Shen Jingquan shouted angrily. "Become enemies? The Shen family is not worthy of becoming enemies with us." Medicine Master Lu looked at Shen Jingquan calmly. Although his voice wasn't loud, the confidence in it made people involuntarily revere him. "Not worthy?" Shen Jingquan was thoroughly enraged. He glared at the newcomer and said, "I'd like to see who in Lan City dares to say such things to me. Chairman Zhang, do you know these two people? I wonder where these natives came from. How dare they act so pretentiously?" "I don't know them." Zheng Jiba smirked. "Do you know them, Manager Ma?" Shen Jingquan asked smugly. "No." Ma Yuqian shook his head. "Then do you know these two people, Medicine Master Tan? Are they very powerful people?" Shen Jingquan continued to ask. "I don't know them." Tan Muji was different from Medicine Master Sunday. Medicine Master Sun had only met Medicine Master Lu once, but Medicine Master Tan had never seen him before. Not every chief pharmacist of the Warriors Marketplace had the opportunity to meet Lu Fangzhen. "Ahahaha. Medicine Master Ji, may I ask if you know these two experts?" Shen Jingquan laughed heartily and turned to look at the fighting arena, where he considered the most distinguished guests. "I think I know them." Apothecary Ji rubbed his eyes and looked at the two people in front of him in disbelief. As the chief apothecary of the Warriors Market headquarters, he naturally recognized Apothecary Lu and Apothecary Chen. They were the chief apothecary of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, and their ranks were even higher than his, a chief apothecary of the Warriors Market headquarters. However, why were they here? It was already a miracle that one of them had appeared here. Now that two of them had appeared together, he found it hard to believe. That was why he hadn't dared to confirm it for a long time. "Little G is here too?" Medicine Master Lu glanced at him and said faintly, "If I had known that you were here, I wouldn't have called myself Old Chen. Although your strength is lacking, it is enough to be Little White Fox's assistant." Gah. Medicine Master Ji finally confirmed that the two people in front of him were Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen. He ran over excitedly and said, "Medicine Master Lu, Medicine Master Chen, it's really you. Why are you here? I didn't even go out to welcome you." "Really? It's nothing. Isn't it because Little White Fox's girlfriend's grandfather is sick? We're here to help him treat her grandfather," Medicine Master Lu said. Medicine Master Ji's face turned red. Then his face was full of shock. What? Did Medicine Master Lu mean that he and Medicine Master Chen were here to help Little White Fox? What was going on? These two were top-notch pharmacists, but now they were going to help an unknown Little White Fox. He recalled how he had been so disdainful when Little White Fox had said that he had a way to treat him. Now even Medicine Master Lu was willing to help him. How good was this person's medical skills? Thinking of this, Medicine Master Ji's face turned red. He did not know what to say. He looked at Xiao Qin apologetically. He wanted to say something but did not know what to say. At that moment, Xiao Qin stood up and greeted them. "Old Man Lu, Old Man Qin, I didn't expect you to come so soon, especially Old Man Qin. Aren't you busy?" I'm flattered that you're here too. Ha ha, Xiao. Little friend, long time no see. Old man Chen laughed. I'm just here to be a passerby. Medicine Master Tan was dumbfounded. He did not understand what was going on. What was going on? Why were these two people? Medicine Master Lu? Medicine Master Qin? Could it be the legendary chief pharmacist of the Hong Chamber of Commerce? Medicine Master Tan broke out in a cold sweat. It could not be. Were they really these two people? Judging from Medicine Master Ji's attitude, it should not be wrong. But how did they know Little White Fox? Moreover, they seemed to be very familiar with each other and were willing to help Little White Fox. What was going on? Shen Jingquan stood there with a stiff expression. He did not know what to say. He could tell who Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen were, so he did not dare to act rashly. Although the Hong Chamber of Commerce did not have the authority to directly manage the Shen family, it was better not to offend such big shots. If the Shen family was blacklisted by the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it would be beyond redemption. Shen Shanhe, who had been closing his eyes, suddenly opened them. A sharp glint flashed across his eyes. Even Medicine Master Ji was extremely respectful to these two people. Their identities were definitely not ordinary. And they were actually sent by the White Fox? Shen Shanhe, who had been disappointed, rekindled his hope. No one wanted to die if they could. He had not lived long enough. Little White Fox, shall we start now? Medicine Master Lu asked. All right. Xiao Qin nodded and said, then you and Old Man Chen will treat Grandpa Shen now. Medicine Master Ji, can you protect us? Yes. Medicine Master Ji nodded quickly. He was willing to do anything. This Little White Fox turned out to be a powerful person. If he could build a good relationship with him, wouldn't it be the same as building a good relationship with Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen? In the future, if he had any questions, he could ask Medicine Master Lu directly. As for Little White Fox, he did not want to ask for advice. After all, he was not from the Hong Chamber of Commerce and had no time to take care of him. The reason why he asked Medicine Master Ji to protect him was that Xiao Qin was afraid that someone would cause trouble while he was treating Shen Shanhe. However, it should be impossible. No matter how these people tried to harm Shen Shanhe in the dark, it was only in public. If they really tried to harm him in the open, it would be insane. Who in the Shen family would support them? Therefore, in theory, no one would cause trouble. Xiao Qin walked to Shen Shanhe's side and sat in Medicine Master Ji's original seat. When Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen walked over, Zheng Jiba hesitated for a moment. In the end, he did not give up his seat to them. He was from the Warrior Guild, which was a different system from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. They could not control each other. Therefore, for the sake of his reputation, he chose to persist to the end. Anyway, even if he gave up his seat, the other party would not have a good impression of him. These people were Little White Fox's friends. If he wanted to deal with Little White Fox, he would eventually become their enemy. On the other hand, Medicine Master Ji quickly moved 2 chairs from nearby and placed them beside Shen Shanhe. Then he said, Medicine Master Lu, Medicine Master Chen, please? The 2 medicine masters nodded. After sitting down, they looked at Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin said, Medicine Master Lu, I believe you have already told Medicine Master Chen the method? Shall we begin now? Yes, let's begin. Medicine Master Lu nodded. Hence, Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen first examined Shen Shanhe's body. After a rough understanding, they began to suppress 1 poison each. As for Xiao Qin, he channeled his primordial qi into Shen Shanhe's body and began to treat the poison. Everyone present stared at them intently. Shen Jingxuan's expression was a little ugly. Something that was so close to success had been ruined just like that. Chapter 469. Although Medicine Master Lu glanced at Zheng Jiba for not giving up his seat, he did not say anything. Xiao Qin, on the other hand, was a little unhappy. This guy was quite arrogant, wasn't he? Why are you sitting so close to him? Are you trying to cause trouble? If anything goes wrong, you'll be responsible, right? Xiao Qin glared at Zheng Jiba. You. Zheng Jiba did not want to admit defeat, but Xiao Qin's accusation was too serious. He had no choice but to snort coldly and find a way out. I'll stay away from you, lest you blame me if you can't cure him. Xiao Qin smiled slightly. He was actually afraid that Zheng Jiba would cause trouble if he was too close, so he pushed him away. When everything was done, Xiao Qin began to detoxify the poison. In fact, with the help of Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen, Xiao Qin's detoxification speed and efficiency had increased a lot. He did not need to exert any effort to suppress the toxicity. He only needed to detoxify it step by step. Then, he channeled the vitality produced after the detoxification into his own body. In fact, Xiao Qin benefited from treating others, but it was more energy-consuming and dangerous without help. Time ticked by. Everyone's attention was focused on Xiao Qin and the two apothecaries. Meanwhile, Apothecary Ji stood at the side with bright eyes. Although he couldn't understand what was happening, he could sense that the white fox was in charge. He was secretly impressed, but at the same time he felt guilty for his rashness. Shen Jingquan stood at the side with an uncertain expression. He was so angry that he was about to explode. He had already done everything, but this white fox was really good at stirring up trouble. She had actually invited Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Qin. If Xin Shanha's illness was really cured, how was he going to carry out the next part of his plan? A strange look flashed in Shen Jingxin's eyes. From beginning to end he did not say anything against it. Instead, he quietly watched the situation unfold. 2 to 3 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Xiao Qin took a deep breath. He had successfully neutralized the toxins in Xin Shanha's body, allowing him to return to his previous state. As for the injury to Xin Shanha's liver, he did not repair it. This was an old injury and it was impossible for him to repair it with his yuan qi. He had to use medicinal liquid to treat it, which was different from poison and new injuries. All right. Xiao Qin stood up and said to everyone present. Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen had obviously checked Xin Shanha's condition and nodded in agreement. Shen Jingxuan's heart was about to explode at this moment, but he still forced himself to be calm and said in surprise, "Really? Is my father really cured?" In reality his heart was bleeding. How could it be good? How could it be? Xin Shanha's face was radiant at this moment. He directly stood up from his wheelchair, his gaze like a sharp knife, sweeping across the crowd. After a long while he said, "This old man has escaped from death. This time I have to thank my little friend White Fox. Today I announce that Jingxian is officially betrothed to the White Fox." The crowd was in an uproar, especially Tanjita. He clenched his fists, gritted his teeth and stared at the White Fox. He could not accept it. He absolutely could not accept it. However, Tan Muwei, who was beside him, patted him on the shoulder, telling him to be patient. There was still a chance. "Thank you, old Master Shen. Grandfather Shen, the White Fox will definitely treat Jingxian well," Xiao Qin said quickly. Shen Jingxian sat below, her face slightly red. She was also a little excited. He actually made the Shen family admit it. Xiao Qin had finally done it. In retrospect, the past few days were like a dream. Even she had a feeling that it was unreal. Everything was too fantastical. "Haha, congratulations, father. Father, you are old but strong. It seems that I should also retire to the second line. Father, you will still be at the helm of the Shen family." Shen Jingquan didn't want to see this White Fox's performance and immediately said against her will, "But, father, since the Shen family's clan meeting has already been held, shouldn't we take this opportunity to decide on the matter of the successor of the young master that we previously proposed? Anyway, it's not far from the end of the year." Huh? Shen Shanha looked at Shen Jingquan with a hidden meaning, making him uncomfortable. He subconsciously wanted to dodge. In fact, he was still very afraid of Shen Shanha. Previously, he was not afraid of Shen Shanha's serious illness. But now Shen Shanha had recovered. How could he not be afraid? "That's right, father. Big brother is right. This matter is imperative. If the family had a backbone this time, we wouldn't be in such a mess." Shen Jingxin also opened his mouth to speak. Shen Jingquan was a little surprised that he stood out. What was going on? Was Shen Jingbing also participating in the competition? But Shen Jingbing did not have an advantage. In terms of strength and contribution to the family, he was not as good as his son, Shen Jingtian. "Zhenghao, what do you think?" Shen Shanha looked at Shen Zhenghao, who had been silent all this while. "Dad, I have no objections." Shen Zhenghao took a deep breath. This was his chance, how could he reject it? Although he was happy for his father's recovery when it came to his own interests, he still had to fight for it. Moreover, this was not considered an unfilial matter. The Shen family had already decided on the direction. It was Shen Shanha himself who proposed it. Now it was just a little earlier. "All right, since no one has any objections, then we will take advantage of this meeting to determine the successor of the family." Shen Shanha nodded. "Before that, I would like to thank White Fox once again. Thank you to Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Qin. Thank you. I will remember your kindness. If there is anything you need me to do in the future, I will not hesitate. Don't mention it. We were also invited by White Fox. Medicine Master Lu cupped his fists and said, since there's nothing else, Old Chin and I will leave first. We still have things to settle. White Fox, let's go back and see you. Alright, thank you Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen for your help. I really can't thank you enough. Xiao Chen also bowed and said, shall I send you off? No need, Xiaoji can send us off. Medicine Master Lu waved his hand. He knew that the atmosphere here was still tense. Xiao Chen wanted to help Xin Jingxian get promoted, but they had already achieved their goal. They could no longer stay here and interfere. As the pharmacists of the Hong Consortium, they could not forcefully interfere with other families' affairs. They could intimidate others, but it was a big taboo to give orders. After all, it had nothing to do with them. Moreover, it was against the Hong Consortium's internal rules. Businessmen should not get involved in those fights. It was not good for business. Alright. Ji Yuliang quickly responded and followed them. This was a rare opportunity to get close to the two pharmacists. How could he let it go? He was pleasantly surprised. Everyone present had their own thoughts as they watched Apothecary LV, Apothecary Qin, and Apothecary Ji leave the conference hall. Shen Jingquan and Shen Jingxin were a little upset. They knew how powerful Apothecary LV and Apothecary Qin were, but they were unwilling to believe that the White Fox had a good relationship with them. When it came to their own interests, even if Shen Jingmao had White Fox's support, they would not back down. So what if the Hong Consortium was powerful? What did that have to do with the Shen family? The Shen family chose the young master themselves. What right did they have to interfere? Alright, let's talk about the competition for the young master's position now. Shen Shanha said slowly, according to the competitor's performance, strength and contributions to the family, each of you will come on stage and tell your story. Then everyone will jointly choose the two most outstanding ones. I will personally assess and decide. Alright, Father. Now let's invite the competitors to come on stage. They will all stand in front of everyone and tell their stories one by one. Shin Jingquan said. Sure. Shin Shanha nodded. Good. Let's invite the outstanding third-generation descendants of the Shen family to come on stage. Shin Jingquan said loudly. At this time Shin Jingtian, Shin Jingbing and Shin Jingmao all came on stage. There was also a collateral relative of the Shen family called Shin Jingyan. He was also one of the more outstanding descendants of the third generation, but he knew that he was purely a bystander. With his background, it was impossible for him to become the young master of the Shen family. However, if he could come on stage and show his face, he would at least be the most outstanding among the collateral relatives of the Shen family. He would also be entrusted with important tasks and be in charge of some important business of the Shen family. That would also be very good. Therefore he did not hope to be promoted. He only hoped that everyone would know him. Alright, let's start from Jingtan. Shin Shanha nodded and looked at Shin Jingtian. There was no problem starting from the first branch. It was reasonable and the others could not say anything. Yes, Grandpa. Shin Jingtian cupped her fists and slowly began to talk about her glorious achievements. My current strength is already at the peak of stage 7 inner force. Among the younger generation, although it can't be said to be too high, it's still not bad. This year, I completed 10 missions in the Warrior Guild and completed 8 of them, earning me points. Shin Jingtian talked non-stop about his ability. In fact, it was similar to a report. However, Shin Jingtian's ability was indeed not small. With just a few words, everyone present was amazed. It turned out that Shin Jingtian had broken through to the peak of stage 7 internal force. Wasn't he only at stage 7 internal force at the beginning of the year? He was already at the peak? What a rare genius. As for the missions at the Warrior Guild, everyone was even more amazed. 8 out of 10 missions were completed. The success rate was not low. Especially the points that were obtained were all contributed to the account of the Shin family. However, the last sentence shocked everyone present. But it also made some people clench their fists. Of course, what I want to talk about is actually the last thing. Compared to the last thing, what happened before is nothing at all. Shin Jingdun smiled and slowly said, I heard that second great-grandfather needed some medicinal herbs. Therefore, I asked around, and with the help of Kita and his master, Medicine Master Ji, I finally managed to get a batch of medicinal herbs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It was all the medicinal herbs that I needed. I bought them all and contributed them to second great-grandfather. I asked third Uncle Jianghu to help me with this matter. I think he is clear about it. Chapter 470. All the medicinal herbs? Bought them all? Everyone was shocked. This was too amazing, wasn't it? Even Shen Jingxin's eyes widened as he looked at Shen Jingtian with envy and jealousy. Why was he so lucky? Only Shen Jianghu clenched his fists. His eyes were about to spit fire. What did Shen Jingtian mean by buying them? He was the one who bought them with White Fox's help. How did it become Shen Jingtian's? He, Shen Jianghu, had become a helper? Shen Jingtian was too shameless, wasn't he? You're talking nonsense. At this moment, Shen Jingmao could not help but stand up. He glared at Shen Jingtan and said angrily, I was the one who bought those medicinal ingredients. I bought them with the help of Brother White Fox. How did they become yours? Jingmao, is it really okay for you to be like this? Shen Jingtian wasn't angry. He said calmly, back then I found the medicinal herbs and only asked you to help me buy them. How did you become the one who bought them? It's true that you bought them, but I was the one who asked my father to give you the money to buy them. You. Shen Jingmao was about to explode. This person's ability to distort black and white was at the peak of perfection. He was shameless to the extreme. How could he say something like that? However, after hearing this, Shen Jinghao's eyes darkened and he almost fainted. He thought more than Shen Jingmao. At this moment, he knew that he had been tricked. Back then, when he bought the medicinal herbs, he only contacted his brother, Shen Jingquan. After all, the family's funds were in Shen Jingquan's hands. He didn't think that Shen Jingquan would be so heartless. In the Shen family, it was normal for there to be competition. It depended on who was more capable. Shen Jinghao wasn't as capable as others, so he had no choice. He didn't put up any defenses and told his brother everything. His brother didn't say a word and transferred the money to him. He even said that he would remember it. Shen Jinghao didn't think much of it. Moreover, he specially reminded Shen Jingquan that other than his father, Shen Shanhe, he shouldn't tell anyone else. During the family meeting during the New Year, he would let Shen Jingmao tell everyone. That way he would be able to shock everyone. But how could he be as shrewd as Shen Jingquan? It would have been better if he didn't say it, but Shen Jingtian said it first. However, he didn't have any evidence now. The money was indeed given by Shen Jingquan, but she said that he was only helping to buy. How was he going to explain that? Even if the White Fox were to prove it, would it be of any use? Would they believe it? Since White Fox is your son-in-law, he will naturally help you. Since there is no one else to prove it, he really can't say anything. Big brother White Fox bought it for us. We were the ones who bought it. How can you steal the credit? Shen Jingmao retorted loudly, Big brother White Fox can testify. Shen Jinghao looked at his excited son and couldn't help but sigh. His son was still too inexperienced. Since the other party had said it, he was naturally fully prepared. He wasn't afraid that he wouldn't admit it. Indeed, Shen Jingtian said indifferently, Jingmao, you and White Fox are relatives. Of course he will help you. If you bought it, why didn't you mention it before? Ask anyone in the Shen family. Is there anyone who knows? Did you buy it? You've done such a great deed, how could you not mention it? If you are such a person who does good things without leaving your name, why are you still competing for the position of the young patriarch? But you. Shen Jingmao was suddenly speechless. He really didn't know how to refute because he couldn't refute it. Yes, what the other party said was right. If he really did it, why didn't he say it? Shen Jinghao's veins were bulging. He was also angry. It was not easy to do such a big thing. Originally, he thought that as long as this matter was thrown out at the Shen family gathering during the New Year, coupled with Shen Jingmao's outstanding performance at the Jingma Summit in Songning, it was still very possible for him to win the position of the young patriarch. But now, everything was a bubble. The credit was completely taken away by others and he couldn't do anything about it. Jingmao, forget it. Shen Jinghao sighed helplessly. In the case of no evidence, it was not a good thing to continue to argue. It would only make Shen Shanhe look down on him even more. Grandpa, this is my contribution to the Shen family. Although some people slander me and want to take the credit from me, I have a clear conscience. Shen Jingtian said righteously. Also, I asked cousin Tanjita to invite Medicine Master Ji to treat Grandpa, but Medicine Master Ji did not treat Grandpa well, so I won't take the credit for myself. Shen Shanhe nodded without batting an eyelid. He did not seem to have any intention of intervening in the dispute between Shen Jingtian and Shen Jingmao, nor did he care about it. He just said, not bad, very good. Grandpa, I'll wait a moment. I have a supporter who hasn't arrived yet. Shen Jingbing said. Okay, then it's Jingmao. Shen Shanhe did not pester her, but directly called Shen Jingmao's name. I'm now a stage 5 inner force warrior. Although I lost at the Songning Righteous Devil Summit this year, I did not retreat. I was the one who asked Brother White Fox to buy those herbs. Shen Jingmao said this with a lack of confidence. It could not be helped. He never thought that Shen Jingtian would directly take the credit. He sighed and said, "Also, Brother White Fox cured Grandpa's illness." "What does White Fox curing Grandpa's illness have to do with you?" Shen Jingtian said faintly, "I say, Cousin Jingmao, are you addicted to snatching credit from others? I was the one who bought the herbs, but you insisted that you bought them. And you said that White Fox cured Grandpa because of you? How does he have anything to do with you?" He is my brother-in-law," Shen Jingmao said anxiously. "Brother-in-law? I remember that Grandpa only betrothed Jingshen to him after he recovered, right? You've known him so early, haven't you? Isn't the logical sequence wrong?" Shen Jingtian sneered. "You." Shen Jingmao was a little angry. "That's right, White Fox is the father who cured Grandpa. Although we are grateful, it has nothing to do with you, and—" Shen Jingquan paused and said, "Are you sure you want to have something to do with him? If you do, then you don't have to compete for the position of young master. You'll be kicked out." "What do you mean?" Shen Jingmao frowned and asked. "White Fox, don't think that you'll let go of what happened yesterday. You're wearing a mask. I suspect that you're a fugitive wanted by the Warrior Guild. In a while, the experts from the Warrior Guild's law enforcement hall will arrive. When that time comes, you'll be arrested and put on trial." Zheng Jiba laughed heartily. "I've already reported your matter to the Warrior Guild's headquarters." How could you do that? Brother White Fox is not a fugitive," Shen Jingmao said anxiously. "Whether he is or not is not up to you to decide. When the people from the Warrior Guild's law enforcement hall arrive, they will naturally give him justice. Of course, that is under the condition that he is innocent." Zheng Jiba snorted coldly. "Members of the Shen family, listen up. If you still want to have anything to do with this White Fox, then don't get implicated in the end." At this time, Shen Shanhe finally spoke. "Vice President Zheng, this is the Shen family's clan meeting. If you do this, are you not giving face to the Shen family?" "I'm just doing my job." Although Zheng Jiba did not want to offend the local snake, the Shen family, he had never thought of offending the Shen family. This matter, he had discussed it with the Shen family's acting head, Shen Jingquan. Shen Jingquan had supported him and even hinted him to do so. But who would have thought that this White Fox would actually cure Shen Shanhe's problem and make Shen Shanhe incomparably healthy? Now that Shen Jingquan did not have the final say, he was in a dilemma. The people from the Warrior Guild's law enforcement hall had already said yesterday, "Why aren't they here yet?" If they had arrived and taken the White Fox away, wouldn't this matter have been avoided? But before the people from the law enforcement hall arrived, he did not dare to deal with the White Fox on his own. The White Fox's strength was there for all to see. If he went up, he would be asking for a beating. Now that there was no other way, he could only bite the bullet and go all the way. He did not want to offend the Shen family, but the Warrior Guild was his immediate superior. If he offended the law enforcement hall, his good days would come to an end. After Shen Shanhe heard the words, "doing my job," he did not say anything else. After all, with his ability, it was not enough to make the Warrior Guild change. He wanted to support the White Fox, but he did not have that ability. "All right, Jingmao, calm down. Isn't it just the people from the law enforcement hall? It doesn't matter." Xiaochen smiled. As he had already received Song Huawu's text message, he did not care about Zheng Jiba's threat at all. Shen Jingmao nodded and did not say anything else. But compared to this, his contribution to the Shen family was much smaller. It was basically equivalent to nothing. At most, he did not admit defeat at the Songning Righteous and Demonic Summit, but this was nothing compared to Shen Jingtian. "Shen Jingyan, tell me about it." Shen Shanhe looked at Shen Jingyan and asked. "Yes, Grandpa." Shen Jingyan hurriedly said respectfully, "This year, I am in charge of the Shen family's agricultural business. We have doubled the scale of production from vegetable and grain cultivation to animal husbandry. Because our products are pure green and natural, the upper class and aristocratic families are in short supply. Even some rich businessmen have come to buy it. So this year, we have a conservative estimate of a total profit of 500 million yuan. Well, you have done a good job. In the future, the Shen family's business will depend on you to take care of it." Shen Shanhe knew that Shen Jingyan had no intention of competing for the position of the young master. He was just showing off. However, his talent was really good. Just the green food industry alone was managed so well by him. It should be known that this was the smallest business in the Shen family's company. It was classified as the development of a manor, but unexpectedly, it had become one of the most profitable enterprises. Chapter 471. Thank you, Grandpa. I will continue to work hard. Shen Jingyan nodded and said, as for the young master, I will leave it to the other brothers. I'm not capable enough, but I have some brains in business. I will assist the other brothers. Well, if that's the case, you can go back first. Shen Shanhe waved his hand, indicating that he could go back. Shen Jingyan respectfully excused himself and returned to his previous seat. Shen Shanhe looked at the remaining 3 disciples on the stage and said, next we will choose 2. Jingbing, the person you mentioned, is he not here yet? He should be here soon. Shen Jingbing looked at his watch and anxiously looked at the door of the conference hall. At this moment, the door of the conference hall was pushed open. However, the people who came in were obviously not the person Shen Jingbing was waiting for, but a few men in black. The disciples of the Shen family followed behind them with a bitter face. They did not dare to stop them until they came in and reported, Old Master, they are from the headquarters of the Warrior Guild. Vice President Zheng, I am from the Law Enforcement Hall of the Warrior Guild. Where is the person you mentioned who is suspected to be a wanted criminal of the Warrior Guild? The leader of these men in black walked in and asked Zheng Jiba directly with a formal expression. Hello. You're here. Zheng Jiba was surprised and happy when he heard the identity of these people. He quickly walked over and shook the leader's hand and said, thank you for the support of the headquarters. Well, let's not talk about this. Where is the person? The leader asked impatiently. He is there, the one wearing the mask. Zheng Jiba pointed to Xiaoqin not far away and said, Ga. When the leader saw clearly that the person sitting there was a white fox, his throat was like a duck's as he let out a startled cry. He looked at Xiaoqin, who was not far away, in shock. Hello Qiao, what's up? We meet again. Xiaoqin waved at Qiao Enz and greeted him. Qiao Enz wanted to die. How could it be him? If he knew that white fox was here, he would not have come. Why did he come? To embarrass himself? Hadn't they lost enough face in Songning City? This Zheng Jiba didn't even make it clear. If he had said it was a white fox, he wouldn't have come. Great, now I've embarrassed myself once again. However, Zheng Jiba could not be blamed. How would he know that Qiao Enz knew the white fox? In order to make the identity of the white fox sound suspicious, he deliberately spoke vaguely, such as covering her face, not knowing her name, and acting sneakily. Qiao Enz had suffered greatly at the hands of the white fox. Coincidentally, the headquarters had given him a quest. To him it was a very simple quest, so he led his team over. It could be considered as completing a quest to answer to the guild's higher-ups. In the end, it was this fox mask again. Let's go. Qiao Enz gritted his teeth, but he didn't dare to flare up. He immediately ordered his men to leave the Shen family's meeting room with him. Wait, don't go. What are they doing? Zheng Jiba was a little confused. Why did these people seem to know the white fox? He just took a look and left? However, Qiao Enz simply ignored Zheng Jiba and left quickly. He didn't even look back. Zheng Jiba had no choice but to return dejectedly. He felt like a clown. Just a moment ago, he had warned everyone not to have anything to do with the white fox. The white fox would soon be investigated by the Law Enforcement Hall of the Warrior Guild. But now, the people from the Law Enforcement Hall had indeed come, but they left quickly. Even if Zheng Jiba didn't know the reason, he could understand that they didn't want to investigate the white fox at all. They wouldn't care about this matter anymore. I say, Vice President Zheng, is this the person you found? I'm sorry, but I know this person. He wouldn't dare to arrest me. Xiaoqin smiled faintly. What else do you have up your sleeves? Zheng Jiba was a little annoyed. He turned to look at Ma Yuqian and gave him a look. Ma Yuqian immediately jumped out and said, I'll say it now. This white fox beat up my son yesterday. So, if the Shen family wants to have anything to do with him, then don't blame me for saying it out loud. I won't do business with your family. Threats, naked threats. If one move didn't work, then another. Shen Shanhe sighed. Initially, he was quite happy that the white fox easily resolved Zheng Jiba's conspiracy. But now Ma Yuqian jumped out again. Old Master Shen, if the Shen family chooses the white fox's brother-in-law as the young master, then I'll leave. Ma Yuqian said lightly. Shen Shanhe's face was very ugly. To be honest, he was actually very satisfied with Shen Jingmao. He was also prepared to keep Shen Jingmao here, but now, these people kept threatening him, forcing him to his wits' end. Did he dare to fall out with the Lan City Warriors Market? He didn't dare. Although Medicine Master Lu and Medicine Master Chen were from the Hong Chamber of Commerce's headquarters, they were only medicine masters. They could have face but they couldn't order Ma Yuqian around. After all, the local warriors market had the right to do whatever they wanted as long as it didn't violate their interests. Ma Yuqian looked at Xin Shanhe, Shen Jingmao, and the white fox with a smug smile on his face. His expression seemed to say, "It's over. Are you stupid? Are you out of ideas?" However, at that moment the door to the conference hall was pushed open again. Behind it was another disciple with a bitter look on his face. Today the Shin family's guests were all super big shots. None of them dared to stop them. Is that so? Unfortunately, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. A pleasant female voice was heard, followed by light footsteps as she walked into the conference hall. Hongzhu. It was Hongzhu. Xiaoqin didn't even need to look. He only needed to hear her voice to know that it was her. She sounded a little unruly. "Who are you?" Ma Yuqian was stunned. "Hong Yingwei, take him down and bring him back to headquarters for punishment." Hongzhu said indifferently, "Ma Yuqian, you are suspected of embezzling the Inc. Chamber of Commerce's public funds and using the Chamber of Commerce's resources for personal gain. Also, take that medicine master Tan back as well." "Yes, Miss Hong." Several Hong Yingwei rushed forward and restrained Ma Yuqian and Tan Muyo. At that moment, Ma Yuqian seemed to suddenly realize who the person in front of him was. "It's you, Hongzhu?" He didn't know that Hongzhu was Hong Ying. Furthermore, the Hong Yingwei did not address her by any other title. Instead, he called her Miss Hong. Regardless, he knew that he was done for. Hongzhu was a direct descendant of the Hong Clan Chamber of Commerce. How good could it be for him to be captured by her? Ma Yuqian immediately slumped to the ground. He had heard of the terror of Hong Ying's Hong Yingwei team and knew that he definitely couldn't escape. He didn't even have the strength to resist. Tan Muyo was also dumbfounded. For a moment she simply couldn't accept this turn of events. "Little Hongzhu, thank you," Xiaoqin said with a smile. "This is also to help our Hong Clan Chamber of Commerce eliminate a scourge. You don't have to thank me. In that case I'll take my leave first." Hongzhu nodded at Xiaoqin. She also knew that it wasn't appropriate to speak with him in such a situation. "All right." Xiaoqin nodded. Hongzhu came and left quickly, causing everyone present to be dumbfounded. They didn't expect that Ma Yuqian and Tan Muyo would be taken away. What was going on? Who was that girl? She was so powerful that she could actually capture two people with just a few words? Could she be a higher-up of the Hong Clan Chamber of Commerce? However, no matter who it was, these people were all a little surprised. They had seen too many important people today, wave after wave. Tanjiro was currently staring blankly at his father being taken away. He still hadn't come to his senses. What was going on? Who was that girl? Shen Jingquan was also dumbfounded. Of his backers, one had been abandoned by the higher-ups, the law enforcement hall, and the other two had been captured by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Now he had to fight alone. It was not favorable for him at all. Zheng Jiba was also going crazy. He might as well go all out today and directly roared, "I've made my words clear today. No matter who becomes the deputy manager of the Warriors Market, as long as White Fox is involved, I will obstruct him and prevent him from doing business with the Shin family." What's wrong with that? He felt that he himself had this domineering attitude which was quite domineering. Just like his name dominating the lost city. "Oh, then you'll be soon," Xiaoqin said indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the Shin family's conference hall was pushed open again. A woman walked in from outside and behind her were two men in black. The Shin family disciples also followed behind with bitter smiles on their faces, but still didn't dare to stop them. Obviously, the identity of this group of people wasn't ordinary. "Zheng Jiba, right? I am Song Huowu, the deputy leader of Team C of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. We have received a request for assistance from the Hong Clan Chamber of Commerce. You are suspected of using your identity as the deputy chairman of the Lost City Warriors Guild to seek improper benefits with Ma Yuqian and Tan Muyo. Come with us now." The person who came in was Song Huowu. Previously, Xiaoqin had already received Hongzhu's text message and knew that Song Huowu would also be coming today. Ma Yuqian and Tan Muyo were from the Warriors Market, which meant that they were from the Hong Clan Chamber of Commerce. Hongzhu could handle them, but Zheng Jiba was from the Warriors Guild, so Hongzhu didn't have the authority to deal with him. Therefore Hongzhu directly looked for Song Huowu. In any case, it was official business and it also involved Xiao Chen, so Song Huawu naturally wouldn't refuse. What? Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Zheng Jiba fainted on the ground. The domineering attitude he had just displayed disappeared in an instant, and he became a weakling. Take him away. Song Huawu waved her hand, and two men in black rushed forward and carried Zheng Jiba out of the conference hall. Song Huawu cupped her fists at Xin Shanhe and said, "My apologies for disturbing everyone. I also have a mission to complete, so I'll be leaving now. Everyone please continue. White Fox, I'll be leaving first." With that, Song Huawu didn't stay any longer and directly left the Shin family's conference hall. Chapter 472. Although what Song Huawu had said earlier was the truth, her last sentence revealed who she was here to support. Now, almost everyone knew that White Fox was not simple. Not only did he know the higher-ups of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, but he also knew the people from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Even the people from the Warrior Guild's Law Enforcement Hall could not do anything to him. How could such a person's background be simple? At that moment, Xin Jingquan finally realized that he had underestimated White Fox and thought that he was just a nobody. How powerful could Xin Jingquan's classmate be? Now it seemed that he had been wrong. This was a truly ruthless person. He was simply too ruthless. All right, let's continue with the family meeting. Xin Shanhe looked at White Fox meaningfully. He naturally understood that White Fox was doing all this to support Xin Jingmao. However, Xin Jingmao's current achievements were too few, and he could not be forced to take the position just because of White Fox's background. If that happened, the members of the Xin family would not be convinced. Although he was the head of the family, he did not have the ability to make the final decision. All right. Father, out of these three, who do you think should stay? Xin Jingquan asked carefully. Stay. Xin Jingbing, is the person you are waiting for not here yet? Xin Shanhe asked. If he still did not speak, Xin Shanhe would have no choice but to let him go first. It should be soon. As Xin Jingbing spoke, an old man walked briskly into the meeting hall. At that moment, all the members of the Xin family, including the guests, were stunned. They looked at the newcomer in astonishment, not knowing why he was here. This person was the second great-grandfather of the Xin family who was in seclusion, Xin Hongjian. Xin Shanhe was also a little surprised, wondering why his second uncle would come. However, he hurriedly stood up respectfully. All the members of the Xin family, including those who had been sitting, also stood up and looked at Xin Hongjian respectfully. Second great-grandfather. Xin Jingbing was very happy to see Xin Hongjian. He strode over and said, "Second great-grandfather, I knew you would definitely come to support me." Xin Hongjian snorted through his nose but didn't comment. Behind Xin Hongjian was the disciple from the Xin family. However, he did not dare to stop this person. He did not even dare to ask because everyone in the Xin family knew that although Xin Shanhe was the head of the Xin family, Xin Hongjian was the true authority in the Xin family. Xin Jingbing's words, as well as Xin Hongjian's response, stunned all the Xin family disciples present, including Patriarch Xin Shanhe. Wasn't Xin Hongqian no longer involved in the affairs of the Xin family? Why did he suddenly appear in the Xin family's conference hall? Moreover, from what he said, it seemed that he was here to support Xin Jingbing. A smile flashed across Xin Jingxin's mouth. It's here, it's finally here. It's time to make the final decision. Previously, no matter how Xin Jingquan and Xin Jingtian performed or how they jumped up and down in Xin Jingxin's eyes, they were nothing more than clowns. And the second great-grandfather of the Xin family was his trump card, a weapon that could turn the situation around. Second uncle. Even Xin Shanhe stood respectfully to the side and greeted him. Xin Shanhe, as the head of the family, you are incompetent. As the head of the family, your control over the family is too weak. You didn't even know that you were poisoned. The Xin family is a disgrace in your hands. Xin Hongjian walked over and scolded him harshly. Xin Shanhe was stunned but did not dare to refute. He could only lower his head and mumble. Now he knew that Xin Hongjian had long known that he was poisoned. It was just that he could not solve the problem, so he did not say anything. Second uncle, you are right. Shanhe is no longer suitable to sit in the position of the head of the family. Therefore, this time, Shanhe plans to choose a young head of the family to gradually take over the position of the head of the Xin family, Xin Shanhe said with a sigh, knowing that he was in the wrong. Well, is there anyone who wants to choose? Xin Hongjian asked. Not yet, I'm choosing, Xin Shanhe said truthfully. Good. What stage are we at now? Shen Hongjian asked. Second great-grandfather, it's time for me to introduce myself. Shen Jingbing stood up excitedly and said, Second great-grandfather, can I start? Yes, you can start, Shen Hongjian said. At this moment, everyone present was a little confused about the relationship between Shen Hongjian and Shen Jingbing. These two people seemed to have an unknown connection. Shen Jingbing said that he was waiting for someone, but the person he was waiting for was Shen Hongjian. Could it be that the person that Shen Hongjian supported was actually Shen Jingbing? I'm now a stage 6 inner force martial artist. Although it's not as high as big brothers, I'm still young and have a lot of room for improvement. Shen Jingbing said, As for me, because I've been investigating grandfather's illness, I'm afraid that I haven't contributed much to the Shen family, but I have a clear conscience. After I found out that grandfather was sick, I immediately found a way to contact second great-grandfather and ask him to make a decision. Wow, everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that Shen Jingbing had already contacted Shen Hongjian. No wonder Shen Hongjian wanted to support him. I told second great-grandfather about grandfather's situation, and second great-grandfather immediately came out of seclusion to treat grandfather. However, the result shocked me. Grandfather had actually been poisoned. Moreover, it was a very vicious poison. Shen Jingbing said loudly. Although many people already knew about this heavy news, there were also many people who didn't know about it. As soon as it was said, there was a sudden shock. Everyone was talking about who was so vicious as to poison Shen Shanhe. I won't say who the person who poisoned grandfather is. You know who it is. Shen Jingbing said firmly, but what I want to say is that I got the news from second great-grandfather as soon as possible and asked him to find a way to prolong grandfather's life even though we can't detoxify the poison. My parents and I take care of grandfather every day, hoping that he can live a little longer and stabilize the Shen family. We won't let those despicable people get their way. Shen Jingbing's words were filled with righteous indignation. Everyone present was very impressed. It turned out that Shen Jingbing was a very filial son. While others were fighting for power, his family was taking care of Shen Shanhe. As for the person who poisoned grandfather according to Shen Jingbing, everyone present could immediately think of Shen Jingxuan's family. They were the only family that benefited the most after grandfather Shen collapsed. Although I don't have a nepotism like Shen Jingmao, I can use my sister to find someone to help grandfather detoxify the poison, but I did what I could, so I have a clear conscience. Shen Jingbing said. If it wasn't for Shen Jingxian, Xiaochen wouldn't have bothered to argue with him, but he actually got Shen Jingxian involved. Xiaochen was naturally unhappy. This was his goddess. How could he say it just because he wanted to? But, what's your name? Are you crazy? You have bad intentions. Xiaochen said coldly. You. Shen Jingbing hated it when people called him a lunatic. It was an eternal pain in his heart. When he first came up with his name, he didn't think too much about it. His family wanted him to be quiet as ice, but there was nothing wrong with the name itself, but when it was combined with his surname, there was a problem. How am I harboring evil intentions? He could only give up on arguing about being crazy. Instead, he shouted and asked why Xiaochen said he had bad intentions. You found out that grandfather Shen was poisoned, but you didn't tell anyone. If you didn't have bad intentions, what else could it be? You don't have a way, but it doesn't mean that others don't have a way. If you said it, maybe Jing Mao would have already found me and cured grandfather Shen's problem. Moreover, it wouldn't have taken so much effort to invite 2 pharmacists over to help. I could have done it myself. Xiaochen sneered. Do you still dare to say no? No. Shen Jingbing said angrily. Besides, I also thought of a way to buy time for grandfather. Moreover, this poison was done by Shen Jingtian's family. If I said it, I'm afraid they would kill me faster. Previously, Shen Jingbing was only hinting and didn't say who specifically poisoned him. But now, she directly said it, causing Shen Jingxuan's expression to instantly turn extremely ugly. He glared at Shen Jingbing, but with Shen Hongjian around, he didn't dare to deny it. Obviously, Shen Hongjian also knew the truth. He could only glare angrily to express his indignation. Moreover, Shen Jingquan also knew that he didn't have a chance. His son, Shen Jingtian, also didn't have a chance. With Shen Hongjian's appearance, his wishful thinking had already been shattered. Then you can tell Shen Jingmao or Uncle Shen Jinghao, right? He's definitely innocent. Who knows, he might be able to help you think of a way. Xiaochen asked in return. Even second great-grandfather didn't have a way. How would I know he would have a way? It's already very impressive that I could think of buying time for him. Besides, delaying time will delay your treatment. Isn't it still not too late? This is also my credit. Xin Jingbing said angrily. Is that so? That old fart doesn't have a way, but others don't have a way? Xiao Qin said coldly. Xiao Qin's words directly stunned the Xin family. He actually dared to say that Xin Hongjian was an old fart? This person was too awesome, wasn't he? Although they didn't know Xin Hongjian's strength before he went into seclusion, he was already at the peak of stage 10 inner force. Now his strength should be even higher. That white fox actually dared to say that he was an old fart. Was he courting death? However, to everyone's surprise, Xin Hongjian didn't refute it, nor did he make a move. Instead, he still stood at the side. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Xiao Qin continued speaking. He didn't care that Xin Jingbing was dumbfounded. He directly said, "Moreover, do you think I don't know? Your so-called delaying is just another type of poison in Grandpa Shen's body, causing the two poisons to entangle with each other. Thus, Grandpa Shen will die a little slower. The reason you're doing this is just to delay time. Then you'll serve him day and night, making people think that your family is filial. Then you'll pass the position of heir to the Shen family to you. Am I right?" Chapter 473. You're slandering me. Xin Jingbing was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Xiao Chen's words had hit his sore spot, and he immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He turned to look at Xin Hongjian and said, "Second great-grandfather, please seek justice for me. Also, this white fox has been disrespectful to you. Please chase him out. Chase him out of the Xin family." "He's not slandering me. Isn't what he said the truth?" Xin Hongjian said lightly, "You poisoned him. Although it delayed him, it increased the difficulty of treatment." "That's right. Besides, didn't you think so too? You wanted to delay Xin Shanha's illness for a few days at all costs, to delay his death by a few days so that you could pretend to be filial and let him pass his position to you?" Xin Jingbing stared blankly at Xin Hongjian. He did not understand why his second great-grandfather had suddenly gone crazy. Didn't he not object when he asked him to support him? If he did not deny the existence of such an expert, why would he change his mind at the last minute? "Hello, Clayton, we meet again. Your family is really messy." Xiao Qin waved at Xin Hongjian. "You old fart, no wonder you didn't dare to tell me you were from the Xin family when I asked you where the Xin family was. So this is the reason." Xin Hongjian was a little embarrassed. He was indeed Clayton. And Clayton was just a code name he came up with for the warrior guild. He had studied abroad when he was young, and his name was similar to the main character in Fortress Besieged. Even their experiences were similar. He was a martial arts fanatic. How was it studying abroad? He just wanted to see what foreign martial artists were like. He was busy practicing martial arts all day long and did not study at all. In the end, he only came back with a fake diploma. As a result, he gave himself the name Clayton, and that was how he came to be. Cough cough. Young friend, you and I are about the same. If you call me an old fart again, I won't be polite to you. Xin Hongjian coughed twice and said. Xin Jingbing was dumbfounded. He had completely turned into a lunatic. He widened his eyes and pointed at the white fox in disbelief. You know each other? Impossible. This is impossible. I was supposed to win. You bastard. If you didn't come and ruin things, I would be the head of the Shen family. I can't accept this, I can't accept this, why yeah. Extreme joy begets sorrow. He had always felt that he was the biggest winner, but now he suddenly fell from the sky to the mortal world. This feeling of being on a roller coaster made him go crazy. Previously, regardless of whether Xin Shanha's illness was cured or not, as long as Xin Hongjian stood up for him when the time came, everything would be fleeting. No matter how powerful Xin Jingquan was, he would still have to listen to Xin Hongjian. Because his strength was there, his identity was there. No matter how much Xin Jingquan jumped, it was all for naught. But how could he not have foreseen the white fox accident? Previously, when he saw the white fox make Xin Jingxuan's family suffer a setback, he was quite happy. It didn't take much effort to suppress the first branch. But now, the other party was definitely coming to deal with him. Alright, in the end, this young master is still the Xin family's matter. It's not good for an outsider like me to participate. It's just that if the matter with Jing Mao isn't resolved, I might have to stay in Lan City for a period of time. It might delay some other matters. Xiao Qin had a, you know what I mean, expression on his face. Xin Hongjian was a little speechless. But to be honest, whichever of the younger generation of the Shin family became the young master had little to do with him. He wasn't keen on power. Previously, when Shin Jingbing looked for him, he naturally knew what Shin Jingbing was thinking. However, he felt that Shin Jingbing was quite smart. He was just a little sinister, but at least he wasn't as bad as the first branch. Being sinister was different from being bad. Shen Jingxuan's poisoning was already devoid of conscience. But now, with the White Fox's involvement, Shin Hongjian could no longer support Shin Jingbing. He could only say, I think that Shin Jinghao's son, Shin Jingmao, has a noble character and is young and promising. At the Righteous and Demonic Summit in Songning, even though his strength is low, he didn't back down. He's a good seedling and even helped me search for medicinal herbs from the White Fox. His filial piety is commendable. Shin Shanha, why don't we let him be the young master? Sure. How could Shin Shanha dare to say no? Shin Hongjian had already made it so clear that he couldn't refute it even if he wanted to. Moreover, the person he liked was Shin Jingmao. Shin Jingtian was dumbfounded. He didn't know that second great-grandfather actually knew the White Fox. Then wouldn't his previous bragging be exposed in an instant? At that time, would second great-grandfather believe him or the White Fox? It went without saying. Since the White Fox dared to call Shin Hongjian an old fart, one could imagine how good their relationship was. Moreover, even Shin Hongjian said that their strength was about the same. Then what level of expert was this White Fox? Could it be that he was also a martial artist level 10 great perfection? Since that's the case, I hereby announce that Shin Jingmao is the young master of the Shin family. Shin Shanha, don't retire yet. Assist him for a few years and let him inherit the family business smoothly. Shin Hongjian said, if anyone is dissatisfied, you can tell me. All right. Shin Shanha hurriedly nodded. Dissatisfied? Who would dare to be dissatisfied? Hearing Shin Hongjian's words, be it Shin Jingquan or Shin Jingxin, they both shrunk their necks. If they were dissatisfied, they would be courting death. Shin Hongjian was the true decision-maker of the Shin family. Even if he killed a descendant of the Shin family, there would be no one to reason with. These ancient martial arts clans all retain the style of the clan patriarchal system. Even if they killed their descendants, the Martial Arts Guild and the Supernatural Investigation Bureau would not find trouble with them. That was only an internal matter. No matter how much trouble they caused, as long as they did not interfere with other clans and sects, it would not matter. Well, Clayton, you look quite old, but you're not muddle-headed. All right, I'll be free after this matter is settled, Xiaoqin said with a smile. Shin Hongjian snorted coldly, clearly displeased with Xiaoqian's shameless behavior. He said, all right, children of the Shin family, go do what you need to do. From today onwards, the first branch, Shin Jingquan, and his family are chased out of the Shin family and are not allowed to return. Although the second branch, Shin Jingxin, and his family are not in the wrong. I'll give you a chance to turn over a new leaf. You must live up to your name, Shin Jingxin. Yes, second grandpa, I understand. Shin Jingxin knew that the matter had been settled. Their family had no chance at all, so he did not think too much about it. He tugged at the slightly deranged Shin Jingbing and said, all right, don't go crazy. If you don't want to die, quickly come back and sit down. Oh. Shin Jingbing returned to her seat in a daze. She lowered her head. No one knew what she was thinking, but it was obvious that she was disheartened. White Fox, are you satisfied this time? If you are, when the time comes you must work hard. Don't let me down. Shin Hongjian looked at Xiaoqian and said, don't worry. Everything is fine here. I'll go back and prepare as soon as possible. Xiaoqian said. Shin Hongjian nodded and turned to leave the conference hall. No one knew what they were talking about or what kind of riddles they were playing, but no one dared to ask. All right, the Shin family's conference is over. Shin Jingmao, come to my room. I have some family matters to discuss with you. Everyone else, go back to your own business. Shin Jingquan, you may leave, Shin Shanha said. Shin Jingxuan's eyes were filled with indignation. He pulled Shin Jingtian and Tan Muwei and quickly left the conference hall. Before he left, he glanced at White Fox. No one knew what he was thinking. Shin Jingtian did the same. She glanced at the people in the room, lowered her head, and left with her father. However, if Xiaoqin said that the traitors of this family should be killed directly, what was the point of keeping them alive? Regardless, this was Clayton's family matter. It was not appropriate for him to interfere further. If he said to let them go, then so be it. This time, everyone in the Shin family knew that the Shin family's future depended on the family. Actually, these people already knew that White Fox was a very powerful person. Not only did he know the people from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he also knew the people from the Martial Artist Guild's Law Enforcement Hall. Even the people from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau had to give him face. Just this alone was enough for Shen Jingmao to gain a foothold. Previously, Shen Jingquan and Shen Jingxin had staked everything on one throw. Even if they knew about it, they did not want to give up. However, the others knew that Shen Jingmao was not to be trifled with. However, if one were to say that they were surprised, what followed was shock. The pillar of the Shen family, Shen Hongjian, actually knew White Fox. Moreover, they were on good terms. They were of the same generation. How could they compete with Shen Jingmao? This brother-in-law of his was amazing. Many young girls from the side branches of the Shen family cast envious gazes at Shen Jingxian. However, they could not help it. They were not as beautiful as Shen Jingxian. The boyfriend of a goddess was indeed different. At this moment, Shen Jingshuan's heart was filled with sweetness. This family meeting was really full of ups and downs. Her heart was hanging in suspense one moment and relaxing the next. However, what made her happy was that in the end, Shen Jingmao still won. All of this was thanks to Xiao Chen. Thinking of this, Shen Jingxian looked at Xiao Chen with eyes full of love. After that time, this was the first time she took the initiative to do it with Xiao Chen. Sometimes, the reason why women fell in love was very strange. Just admiration alone could make them unable to extricate themselves. The members of the Shen family began to leave. However, before Xiao Chen walked out, no one dared to pass him. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong with Shen Jingxian, who was beside him. Xiao Chen turned his head and looked. However, he discovered that Shen Jingshuan's face was red. There was a hint of seduction in her eyes, and her breathing was a little rushed. This made Xiao Chen slightly stunned. Jingxian, what's wrong? Xiao Chen asked. Shen Jingxian took the initiative to hold Xiao Chen's arm. Previously, when she was in the Shen family, she did not dare to publicly act so intimately. However, she was not afraid now. Not only was her grandfather personally betrothed her to Xiao Chen, but her younger brother, Shen Jingmao, was already the young master of the family. Of course, the higher-level reason was that her man was White Fox. Now, no one dared to say anything bad about White Fox. Go to your room? Shen Jingxian said softly. I miss you. Chapter 474. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. He tightened his grip on Shen Jingshuan's hand and quickened his pace. Although it was daytime, Xiao Chen had been waiting for this moment for too long. Shen Jinghao smiled as he watched his daughter and White Fox leave. He felt that every step he took now was awesome. All he needed was a few lightning bolts by his side. Just thinking about it made him feel good. His son was the young master of the family, Shen Jingmao. His son-in-law was White Fox, who was on the same level as his second grandfather. Now, when the Shen family saw Shen Jinghao, those of the same generation would respectfully call him Brother Hao, while the younger generation would call him Uncle Hao, which made him feel good. Xiao Chen and Shen Jingxian quickly returned to the guest room and closed the door. Goddess Shen couldn't wait to hug Xiao Chen. Her body was almost pressed against Xiao Chen's body. Her breathing was a little rushed. She closed her eyes and exhaled. Kiss me. Shen Jingxian didn't seem to be satisfied with having her lips sealed by Xiao Chen. She couldn't wait to tear off the clothes on her body. However, at this time there was a knock on the door. This made Xiao Chen and Shen Jingxian a little unhappy. Who was it? Knocking at the door at this time. Who is it? Xiao Chen released Shen Jingxian and asked angrily as he put on his mask. Just, brother-in-law, it's me. Shen Jingmao's weak voice came from outside the door. He didn't understand why White Fox was so angry. Xiao Chen was a little speechless. It was his brother-in-law. He could only walk over and open the door. Shen Jingmao walked in and saw his sister's red face and untidy clothes, as well as the angry White Fox. He finally understood what had happened. Immediately, Shen Jingmao felt a little apologetic. His face was full of awkwardness. But, sister, brother-in-law, I'm sorry. Did I come at a bad time? Nothing. Jingmao, what's wrong? Shen Jingxian didn't know what to say, but how could she say it to her brother? Was he supposed to let him out? That would be too embarrassing. Therefore, Shen Jingxian tried hard to calm herself down. Grandpa told me something about the family. He asked me to stay in the family and slowly take over the family's affairs. Dad will also stay to assist me. As for Songning. Shen Jingmao hesitated for a moment. Sister, you're the only one left. Oh, that's not a big deal. Shen Jingxian didn't mind. I'll move to Menjing's house and live with Menjing. You don't have to worry about me. That way she could see Xiaochen every day. For Xin Jingxian was very happy. Her brother and father had serious things to do. How could she ask for anything else? Now that her father and brother had gotten what they wanted, she couldn't hold them back. Well, then I'll go out first. I won't disturb you. Xin Jingmao stuck out his tongue and scratched his head awkwardly. He quickly left the room. Xin Jingxian blushed and glared at Xin Jingmao. She turned around and hung her head on Xiaochen. Go to bed? Hongzhu didn't leave immediately with Ma Yuqian and Tan Muyo. Instead, they got into a commercial car in the parking lot of the Xin family. Hongzhu also needed to contact them and send them back to the headquarters. She still had things to do in Songning City, so she naturally couldn't go back with them. While she was waiting for the call, Hongzhu suddenly frowned and said to Hong Yingwei, "Wait for me. I have something to do. I'll be back soon." Hongzhu quickly opened the door and got out of the car. She quickly ran to the inner courtyard of the Xin family's mansion. Most of the disciples of the Xin family knew Hongzhu. She had already broken in once and taken away Ma Yuqian and Tan Muyo. Who would dare to stop such a ruthless person? Therefore they pretended not to see her. Who knew who Hongzhu would come and take back again? Hongzhu finally arrived at the inner courtyard of the Xin family's courtyard. She stopped in front of the door of Xiao Chen's guest room. Hongzhu's face suddenly revealed an excited expression. Without thinking, she impatiently kicked the door and broke in. She had already missed several opportunities with a naturally charming woman. If she ran away empty-handed this time, she would really die of depression. Ah! Xin Jingxian was shocked. At this moment, she was straddling Xiao Chen's body. In fact, she had just tried this action. Today's arousal had made her no longer satisfied with being conquered by Xiao Chen. Instead, she had turned the tables and started to conquer Xiao Chen. However, she had never expected that someone would actually dare to break in the Xin family's door. Furthermore, it was after the White Fox had displayed his invincible might and Xin Jingmao had become the young master. Was this person crazy? Wasn't she afraid of death? Xiao Chen was also scared out of his wits. He turned his head to look in the direction of the door and was extremely stunned. What was it, Hongzhu? Hongzhu was also a little dumbfounded. She looked at Xin Jingxian, who was completely naked on Xiao Chen's body. She was a little at a loss and could only stare at them in a daze. I say, Hongzhu, can you close the door first? If someone comes in later, we'll be screwed. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and said somewhat helplessly, if you have something to talk to me about, you can just give me a call. There's no need to barge into someone's room, right? Xiao Chen, you. Hongzhu stammered, unable to speak. Although she was usually bold and often made fun of Xiao Chen, she was still a little virgin. Now that she saw this scene, she did not know what to do. Hongzhu, if there's anything, can we talk about it later? You see, we haven't finished yet. Xiao Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. Even if we have a good relationship and you've tried to seduce me time and time again, there's no need to do this, right? Hongzhu stomped her feet in anger and was about to leave when she suddenly thought of something. She hurriedly ran over and yanked Xin Jingxian off Xiao Chen's body. Fuck. You little she-devil, what are you trying to do? Xiao Chen cried out in pain and yanked Xin Jingxian off his body. Was she trying to end his family line? Hongzhu saw something that he should not have seen in the next moment. However, he was no longer as nervous as before. Instead, he carefully looked at it and said with a look of disdain, so small? Xiao Chen wanted to die. Even if this Hongzhu was a little she-devil, she shouldn't be so shameless, right? Moreover, she was even attacking him. This made him very angry. Didn't you scare me? Luckily I was scared, otherwise I would have died if you had dragged Jingxian away like that. Alright, put on your clothes first. You can't do that. I have something important to tell you. Hongzhu said with a frown. I say, little Hongzhu, can you wait a moment? We're done? You said that I'm not going up or down right now, you're a bit of a scam. Xiao Chen had already been seen naked, so he no longer tried to hide and was a little depressed. Xin Jingxian also looked at Hongzhu with some hidden bitterness. Today, she did not know why, but she was especially interested, but now she had no choice but to stop. I already said that you can't do that, why didn't you listen? Hurry up and put on your clothes. Hongzhu said. I say, little Hongzhu, you can control heaven and earth, you can control the Hong Chamber of Commerce, but you're also interfering in this matter. Xiao Chen was suddenly a little speechless. How do I say this? If you continue to do that with her, you'll kill her. Hongzhu said. Xiao Chen was slightly surprised. Kill her? What do you mean? Shen Jingxian also widened her eyes, looking at Hongzhu strangely. Why would Xiaoqin kill her? Why would Hongzhu say that? Could it be that Hongzhu liked Xiaoqin and was jealous of her, so he deliberately said that? Thinking about it, it was also possible. A girl standing in front of a naked Xiaoqin, not only did she not leave but she was even talking. The more Shen Jingxian thought about it, the more likely it was. Her physique is called innate charming bones. Among us devil cultivators, this is a very rare physique, do you know? Shen Jingxian said. Xiaoqin was surprised. Innate charming bones? Shen Jingxian blushed. What kind of lousy name was that? To put it nicely, it was called innate charming bones, but to put it bluntly, wasn't it just coquettish? She was a little annoyed and glared at Hongzhu. Don't always say bad things about others, it's not good. Xiaoqin, do you think I would lie to you? Hongzhu said. Xiaoqin frowned slightly. That's right, Hongzhu shouldn't lie to him, and looking at her appearance, it didn't seem like she was joking at all. Xiaoqin also became serious, saying, Hongzhu, what's going on? What is innate charming bones? This kind of physique, what's wrong with it? Women with innate charming bones all have short lives, Hongzhu said. There is a saying, beautiful women have a short life. This is exactly what it means. You mean your little sister? Xiaoqin asked. Scram. Hongzhu glared at Xiaoqin. If you talk nonsense again, I'll kick you to death. Oh, Xiaoqin shrunk his legs. If a woman with innate charming bones doesn't know how to cultivate, when they have intercourse with another, they will leak the yin yuan in their body. After a long time, when the yin yuan is exhausted, that person will not be far from death. Hongzhu said, and Shen Jingxian has this kind of physique. If you want her to die, you can continue. But once or twice shouldn't have much of an effect, right? Xiaoqin was also shocked, but he still asked. Of course it wouldn't affect an ordinary person, but with you? I don't know what kind of evil mental cultivation method you cultivate, but when she does it with you, I can feel her yin yuan rapidly entering your body and being devoured by you. Hongzhu said word by word, if I hadn't discovered it in time, the two of you wouldn't have done it more than 10 times and she would have died. Really? Xiaoqin was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Is there any meaning in lying to you? Hongzhu said, so for her future, Xiaoqin, you can't be too selfish. Chapter 475. What do you mean? Xiaoqin asked with a frown. I will take her back to the sect and let her cultivate our sect's mantra. Hongzhu continued, and if she can control her yin yuan to not leak at all times, there won't be any problems in the future. This. Xiaoqin was dumbfounded by Hongzhu's sudden words. Hongzhu wanted to take Shen Jingxian away? How could he be willing? But his intuition told him that Hongzhu couldn't be deceiving him, because there was no meaning to it. If Hongzhu said that he liked him and wanted to drive him away, then there were plenty of people he wanted to drive away. Most likely the first one he would drive away would be Yi Xiaoye or Lu Shuangshuang. He wouldn't beat around the bush and make up such a reason to trick him. Xiaoqin, I'm doing this for your own good. Hongzhu said, you and I are already so familiar with each other, so I won't say anything else. Although I have my own selfish motives in finding a naturally bewitching woman and taking Shen Jingxian away, I really didn't lie to you. If I don't take her away, even if you no longer have any relationship with her, she will still suffer a tragic fate. After listening to Hongzhu's words, Xiaoqin immediately fell silent. In truth, he was somewhat reluctant to part with Shen Jingxian. At most, today was their second time, but they still hadn't completed it. Moreover, it wasn't that Xiaoqin was infatuated with this matter, but that he really didn't want to be separated from goddess Shen. When they were together, even if they didn't do anything, Xiaoqin would still be very happy. But now, from Hongzhu's words, if he didn't agree to let Shen Jingxian leave, Shen Jingxian would probably run into problems. After a long while, Xiaoqin asked, Hongzhu, how did you discover that Jingxian is naturally bewitching? Does Jingxian often stay in your villa? Hongzhu asked in response. Chem? Yes. Xiaoqin nodded, not understanding why Hongzhu had suddenly changed the subject. Then there's no mistake. Hongzhu nodded, the person I've been looking for should be her. A few days ago, were you having sex in the wild not far from an agricultural shop near the villa district? Xiaoqin shot a glare at Hongzhu, then thought for a moment, and realized that it was indeed the case. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and nod. How did you know? When a woman with an innately seductive physique becomes aroused, I can feel the Yin essence leaking out. Hongzhu said, however, I reckon that you used some kind of illusion to trap me. I went around looking for you several times, but I still couldn't find you. Xiao Qin had indeed set up an illusion at that time, and he did not deny it after hearing it. Also, on the night of the Righteous and Devil Summit in Songning, did you also fall in love with him? It should be in the villa. As Hongzhu spoke up to this point, he suddenly felt that something was wrong and looked at Xiao Qin in astonishment. Didn't you help me look after the pharmacy that day? Then Jingxian and Xiao Qin stared blankly for a moment. Although he didn't believe that Jingxian would do anything with other people behind his back, he still had some doubts. Could it be that there were other women with an innately seductive physique in the vicinity of the villa district? However, he heard Jingxian say somewhat embarrassedly, that day, Xiao Qin displayed his invincible might at the summit. At night, when I was taking a bath and scrubbing my body, I started to miss him a little. No wonder. Hongzhu suddenly nodded. Maybe you were just thinking about it and you calmed down after taking a bath. When I told you I was going, I couldn't feel it anymore. Hongzhu, if I go back with you, will I be unable to see Xiao Qin in the future? Jingxian asked somewhat worriedly. Of course not. If we meet, Xiao Qin can go to the sect at any time. It's just that you haven't cultivated to a certain level, so you can't do that with him again. Otherwise, it will be detrimental to your cultivation and your body. Hongzhu said. Xiao Qin, what do you think? Jingxian looked at Xiao Qin. She couldn't make up her mind, so she could only ask Xiao Qin to make a decision. I think that Hongzhu can't lie to us, so for your own good I can endure it and you can go and cultivate. It will also be beneficial, we can progress together. Xiao Qin said. And? Jingxian nodded. I'll listen to you. Xiao Qin took a deep breath and nodded. Although he was somewhat reluctant, he wasn't a selfish person. Moreover, it wasn't like Goddess Shen wouldn't come back, he could go and see her at any time. Thinking of this, Xiao Qin said, okay Hongzhu, then you can take her back, but you must guarantee her freedom. I can't see her when I want to. That won't happen, Hongzhu said. At the very least, my words in the sect still have some power. Don't forget, I am from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Then, you go out first, we need to put on our clothes. Xiao Qin said somewhat awkwardly, he still hadn't put on his clothes. Okay, then I'll go out and wait for you. Hongzhu very readily nodded, left the room and closed the door for Xiao Qin. Jingxian hugged Xiao Qin tightly, and Xiao Qin could feel her reluctance to part, so he also hugged her back. Jingxian, when you finish cultivating, we can still see each other often. Jingxian nodded, but she still had some doubts. Xiao Qin, that Hongzhu, she really won't lie? I don't think so. Xiao Qin said with certainty, I know this Hongzhu person, we've always had a good relationship. Back then, when your father bought the medicinal ingredients for Shin Hongjian, he got them from her, and we've also worked together many times. Oh. Jingxian nodded, a little silent. In fact, she could also see that Hongzhu shouldn't be lying, her innate charm should be real. In fact, Jingxian had also discovered that she was especially easily moved. She didn't know why before, but now it was most likely because of this reason. Let's get dressed and go out, Hongzhu is still waiting for us. I reckon he'll have to talk to Uncle Shen and the others about this in a while. Xiao Qin said. Then, you don't want to? Jingxian suddenly asked. If you want it, then bear with it. Compared to your life, this is nothing. Xiao Qin shook his head. Let me help you. Jingxian hesitated for a moment, then lowered her head and gently turned around, and then, she didn't tell the reader what had happened. Hongzhu waited outside for half an hour, about to explode with anger. What were these two doing again? Sensing that Jingxian seemed to have become aroused again, Hongzhu wanted nothing more than to kick the door in. How could this Xiao Qin be like this? Did he not care about Jingxuan's life or death? He only knew how to enjoy himself. However, after giving it some thought, Hongzhu still endured it. It wasn't good for him to disturb the couple, so he could only endure it. Finally, the door opened and Xiao Qin and Jingxian walked out hand in hand. Xiao Qin, did you two do that again? Hongzhu asked with a dark face. No. Xiao Qin hurriedly shook his head. Since you've already said so, how could I dare to do that? You're lying. Hongzhu said, I felt it all. Saying so, he looked at Jingxian. Really, didn't? Jingxuan's mouth was a little numb. She hadn't recovered yet, so the moment she opened her mouth, she gave herself away. Hongzhu was also taken aback. He looked at Jingxian meaningfully, a strange smile on his face. All right, let's just say you didn't. But, Xin Jingxian, aren't you the goddess of the school? It's really hard to imagine. Xin Jingxian blushed slightly. In fact, she herself also found it a little hard to imagine that she would do such a thing, but when she really did it, it seemed very natural and she didn't feel any discomfort. She liked Xiaochen more and more. In her opinion, this was what she should do and it wasn't a big deal. If Tang Tang could do it, why couldn't she? You've investigated Jingxian? Xiaochen asked. Hongzhu waved the phone in his hand and said, of course, when the sect accepts a disciple, I naturally have to investigate. If Hongzhu wanted to investigate someone, he could directly mobilize the power of the Hongying group, and it would be very easy to find them. Moreover, he had investigated Xin Jingxian before, and knew that Xiaochen had been pursuing Xin Jingxian. Let's go, we'll go see Jingshuan's father now and tell him about this matter. Although Xiaochen had already agreed in his opinion, it was reasonable for him to inform Xin Jianghao first. Do you know where Uncle Xin Jianghao and Xin Jingmao are? Xiaochen randomly grabbed a disciple of the Xin family and asked. Replying to great hero White Fox, Uncle Hao and the young patriarch are in the old patriarch's villa, the disciple hurriedly replied respectfully. Xiaochen nodded, and the three of them walked toward Xin Shanha's villa. Sure enough, they saw Xin Shanha, Xin Jianghao, and Xin Jingmao sitting on the sofa discussing something. Seeing White Fox arrive, Xin Shanha immediately stood up. Although White Fox was Xin Jingshuan's man, he didn't dare to be careless. This was someone who sat on the same level as Xin Hongjian, not to mention the person who saved his life. When Xin Jianghao and Xin Jingmao saw Xin Shanha stand up, they quickly followed suit and said, White Fox, you're here. What's the matter? Miss Hong is here too. When Xin Shanha saw Hongzhu, he immediately said respectfully, May I know why Miss Hong is here? It's like this. Xiaochen pondered for a moment, then told them about Xin Jingshuan's matter. Everyone here was Xin Jingshuan's closest people, so there was no need to hide it. As for the other members of the Xin family, Xiaochen didn't intend to tell them the truth. After all, if news of her natural charm were to spread, people might think of her as a slut or something. However, the people here certainly wouldn't. When Xiaochen finished speaking, these people were very surprised. Xin Shanha's eyes widened. That is to say, Jingxian has become an expert? With this kind of physique, becoming a martial master shouldn't be a problem. Hongzhu said. It's just a matter of time. Martial master. Xin Shanha sucked in a breath of cold air. If the Xin family really produced a martial master, then the Xin family's status would rise to another level in the future. Even his second uncle, Xin Hongjian, had not succeeded in advancing. He was only a half-step martial master, only slightly more powerful than someone at the peak of the 10th stage of inner force. Chapter 476. Jingxian, I respect your and White Fox's intentions. Xin Shanha said, since that's the case, this is for your own good, I have no objections at all. And father is right. Xin Jinghao also nodded and said, I also have no objections. Xin Jingmao also had no objections. To be honest, he was currently in the Xin family, and could only be said to be at the stage of learning and internship. He still wouldn't casually voice his opinion. After the matter was settled, Hongzhu was naturally anxious to bring Xin Jingxian back to the sect, because she also had to return to the Hong Chamber of Commerce headquarters to handle some matters. Xiaochen, on the other hand, did not want to part with Xin Jingxian so soon. After all, the two of them were deeply in love, and it hadn't been long since they got together, and they were just about to be intimate. Hongzhu also had no choice but to remind Xiaochen not to cross the line, and also allow Xiaochen and Xin Jingxian to be intimate for a few more days. However, a single email had destroyed all of Xiaochen's plans. There are changes in the Xiao family. Xiao Yuanshan is critically ill, the Xiao family's business has been swindled, and the entire Xiao family is in danger. Take care. The email should have been sent by that person from before. He had already repeatedly reminded him of some things. This person obviously knew his identity, but what was his identity? Why would he help him? Xiaochen felt a little strange. This person had used such a method to contact him, and it was obvious that he did not want to expose his identity. This meant that this person should be someone he knew, but people he knew and had a good relationship with would more or less know some of his abilities. Xiaochen took a deep breath, and his mood became somewhat heavy. If his guess was correct, this person had always been helping him and providing accurate information. Then, the Xiao family was a family that made Xiaochen a little disappointed. However, after getting in touch with his second uncle, Xiao Chen also knew that the Xiao family had their own difficulties. The Qing family was powerful while the Xiao family was weak. It was reasonable for them to compromise. After leaving the Xiao family, Xiao Chen had seen too many of the children of aristocratic families acting against their will, especially within the Shen family. It was simply a big scuffle. The infighting and scheming had lost all humanity. For the position of the head of the family, they could even murder the current head of the family who was their father. It was really an eye-opener for Xiao Chen. In comparison, the Xiao family was much better. They cared for each other and were very loving. Even if his sister Xiao Xiao was angry at him, Xiao Chen didn't blame her. He was just a little disappointed. Who asked him to be a loser? Which younger sister would want her brother to be a good-for-nothing who was scolded by others all day long? With the reputation of being a good-for-nothing sister, it would be strange if she was in a good mood. Therefore, when he saw that the Xiao family was in trouble, he had a strong sense of belonging and guilt in his heart. Yes, he was now unhindered in Songning, and he even came to Lan City to call the wind and summon the rain to help Jingxian solve the problem of her family. However, he had neglected his own family. For such a long time, Xiao Chen had almost never paid attention to the Xiao family. Even he didn't know why. Perhaps he didn't want to pay attention to it, but when he did, his mood became very heavy. Deep in his heart, there was still an obsession. That was to return to the Xiao family, but he couldn't go back. At least, he absolutely couldn't go back before he found the mastermind who framed him and his father. As Xiao Chen's vision broadened, Xiao Chen increasingly felt that the Qing family wasn't the ultimate mastermind behind the scenes. His opponents and enemies were getting higher and higher, from Qin Jinping and Chao Yuliang to Li Shaning, and then Ling Youxiang, Qiao Enz and Yang Jianan. However, even they who didn't put the Qing family in their eyes, couldn't manipulate the trial mission of the warrior guild. In other words, there was definitely an expert behind the Qing family. This also forced Xiao Chen to postpone his return to the Xiao family. However, everything changed because of this text message. However, he must return to the Xiao family. How and what identity he would use was still to be considered. At present, the best identity was the White Fox. It wouldn't expose Xiao Chen and it wouldn't cause too much trouble. However, why would the White Fox help the Xiao family? Just because Xiao Chen claimed to be the White Fox's follower? It didn't seem to be enough for the White Fox to run back so desperately, right? However, this reason was somewhat reasonable. Xin Jingxian took a bath. She only wrapped a thin bath towel around her body. She didn't wear her pajamas either. She walked over and gently leaned on Xiao Chen. She wanted to be intimate with him again. Even if she couldn't do that, there were other ways to replace it. However, in the next moment, Xin Jingxian realized that Xiao Chen did not seem to be in high spirits. Even when she arrived, he did not have any special reaction. His brows were still tightly furrowed and no one knew what he was thinking. Xiao Chen, what's wrong? Is it because you're unhappy that I'm leaving? Xin Jingxian gently hugged Xiao Chen's neck and leaned on him. If you don't want me to go, I won't go. Of course not. Xiao Chen shook his head. How could I be so selfish? I'm leaving because of something else. Take a look at this email. As he said this, Xiao Chen handed the phone to Xin Jingxian. Xin Jingxian took it and looked at it. Her expression changed. Really? I don't know, but this person has sent me messages more than once. I think it should be true. Xiao Chen said. Jingxian, no matter what, I have to go back. The Xiao family is my home. I understand. Xin Jingxian nodded and said, then go back quickly. I'll be fine. When the time comes, you can still go to the sect to find me, right? In the future, I'll also become a martial artist, or even a martial master. My lifespan will be extended and we'll have a lot more time together. And then I'll leave now. Xiao Chen stood up and said, Jingxian, if anything happens, remember to call me. I'll rush over as soon as possible. Xin Jingxian smiled and said, treat Menjing better. He is your fiancé. I know. Xiao Chen didn't refuse. He knew that Xin Jingxian had always felt guilty about Qing Menjing. In fact, wasn't Xiao Chen the same? What he felt guilty about was not the present, but the past. The eldest miss was actually a very good girl. Only by getting close to her would one discover her kindness and kindness. Therefore, Xiao Chen was trying his best to make it up to her. Perhaps only when the eldest miss ordered him around could Xiao Chen accept it without any resentment. If it were someone else, Xiao Chen would have turned and left long ago. This was a girl who filled Xiao Chen with very complicated feelings, his ex-fiancée. After informing Hongzhu was also very surprised. She immediately called Tai Muching and asked about what happened in Songning City. After a while, Hongzhu ended the call and said to Xiao Qin, "That's right. The Warriors Market has also received news that the Xiao family was cheated by a few foreign businessmen from Japan recommended by the Sun family. They lost everything, and even some of the Xiao family's properties were used to pay off their debts. And your grandfather, Xiao Yuanshan, fell sick after hearing this news. I heard that he's on the verge of death. Medicine Master Sun went to see him and said that he can't be saved." "Medicine Master Sun is bullsh****T. Xiao Qin snorted coldly. "I'll kill him sooner or later. It seems that the Sun family planned this. They should have been exterminated the last time." Hongzhu suddenly realized that Xiao Qin was quite handsome when he was domineering. Previously, when he saw him being evasive in front of Hongzhu, he thought that it was because of his submissive personality. "If you want to kill him, I'll just give him a call and he'll be dead. After all, he's a member of our Hong Chamber of Commerce." Hongzhu said, "But for now you should go to the Xiao family and take a look. If there's anything you need my help with, just let me know." Xiao Qin nodded. Although he was a little anxious, he wasn't afraid. Things could be solved eventually. Even if his grandfather was critically ill, as long as he wasn't dead, he had a way. He couldn't treat Jingshuan's grandfather and let something happen to his own grandfather, right? Although they didn't know why White Fox was in such a hurry to return, the members of the Shin family didn't dare to ask. Now Shin Jingmao's faction was like the sun at high noon. Not to mention White Fox, even Shin Jingshin was about to enter the demonic sect and become a core disciple. It was said that it wouldn't be a problem for her to become a martial master. Who would dare to disrespect Shin Jinghao's family in the future? As for the former 4 young masters of Lan City, their 4th father was done for, and the 4 young masters had become a joke. The current number 1 young master of Lan City was none other than Shin Jingmao. After hugging Shin Jingshin, Xiao Qin reluctantly let go of her and said, "Take care. You too." Shin Jingshin nodded. "Hey, don't be so affectionate. It's not like we're parting by life and death." Hongzhu teased. "Little Hongzhu, let's hug too?" Xiao Qin asked with a smile. "Sure. Come on." Hongzhu opened his arms. "Forget it." Xiao Qin felt that if he hugged her, he might end up in trouble. "Coward." Hongzhu chuckled softly as he watched Xiao Qin get into the car and quickly leave the Shin family's mansion. "Hongzhu, you like Xiao Qin too?" Shin Jingshin waited until Xiao Qin's car was out of sight before she turned her head and asked. "Ah." Hongzhu was taken aback by Shin Jingshuan's question. Then he smiled and said, "I like him. I guessed it right away." Shin Jingshin did not say anything else, nor did she show any displeasure. She only said, "No wonder you always help him. Then, he didn't wear anything today and you stayed in the room for so long?" "Hee, I'm just kidding." Hongzhu laughed. "At most it's just for fun. But, you don't have to worry. My position in the Hong Chamber of Commerce is very special. I can't marry anyone. The upper echelons of the Hong Chamber of Commerce do not allow outsiders to appear. I heard that there used to be an honorary president?" In truth, Shin Jingshin did not really care about Xiao Chen's relationships with women. She was not a jealous person, but she did not like it when Xiao Chen lied to her. She felt that it was wrong to lie to a couple. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.